Hello, everybody, and welcome. Oh, can you hear me? Yes, but the question is, can you see me? I bet you can't. No. This is the 1 year anniversary show of the Untitled Movie Show, and it's a special video cast that we're doing. But before we get on, I just wanted to make this a very special thing because no one's really technically seen what I look like. They don't know the man behind the voice. Everybody has seen your beautiful face on your movie file videos, so I just wanted to make this special. Ready? One, two, three. Ah, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the man behind the voice of the Untitled Movie Show. I was going to shave, but, I got lazy. I did fix my hair, so, there's that. But yes, everybody, welcome to the Untitled Movie Show on our first Sunday night episode, Sunday, January 4th, 2015. The greatest thing to happen is to January 4th since Hogan joining TNA. Yes, it's our one. Well, I had to compare it to something January 4th related. But yeah, this is our 1 year anniversary show. We've made it a whole year. I'm, of course, your host, Miguel Leon. And of course, as you can see in the other screen, it's the Roast Master General of the Nerd Genius, Michael Verhan. So I guess we have to start with the obligatory question. And that is, did you ever think we would make it a full year with this show? I had to sing that song for graduation back when I was in grade school, so I don't have very much good feelings about that song, but whatever. It's the opposite on my end. You're the big window, I'm the small window. That's fine, guys. This is our first time we're doing a video cast, and this is a special thing. I wanted to do something that made this video different. We were even going to have our third wheel debuting, but I decided against it. Not that I have a problem with the guy, and I'll be introducing him at the end of the show, but it's a very special episode for us. It's 1 year ago. All right, then. I'll keep us going. So yeah, folks. You know, it's been a whole year since we started. I had only started doing audio stuff with Burhan, with the other show we were doing, the other wrestling related show we did years ago. Well, not year. Well, it's been a year actually.
Yeah, you can
And
mention them. It's fine. I'm basically on that whole Plymouth Rock in terms. It's been my hill to die on, and I died on that hill rather seductively, with my legs wide open, posing.
so okay, fair enough. It's a new day. It's a new day, and we're not talking about the faction. It's a new day here for Retro on Limb. So yeah, me and Burhan, we used to be a part of Mega Powers Radio,
Yes.
and we used to be a part of Smark Out Moments. Well, I'm technically still a part of them, although with my schedule I haven't been able to make appearances. But I met Burhan through there, through a friend of ours, a good friend of ours, Chris Jester, who hey, we kind of name drop on Slamcast once in a while, and I'd love to have see him come on the show once in a while. But
He
he's
also
kind
shared
of.
our Nigel McGuinness episode, so thank you,
Oh, he
Chris. Big shout out to
oh
you.
he was a part of that show.
Well, he shared the episode because he enjoyed it, and I have to give him a big thumbs up on that one. But yeah, he's still about, and we did meet on that show. We did that for what it was worth. Miguel was like, I want to do this show. I said to him, look, go and give the other guys a chance to say no to it first before I say yes, because I think it's a great idea. We're always looking for content, and he was just like, okay. They said no. So he came
Uh,
back and we put the show together.
Yeah, we were one of the big three. I think it was IGG when we started Retro on Limb. It
Yes.
was my show, and it was the Unradio show,
Mm-hmm.
which the Unradio show has kind of been on an extended hiatus. Hopefully, we get it back because honestly, I did enjoy that show. The times I was able to catch it before work, it was cool. It was a nice little almost take on pirate radio in a way. You would have the music and the kookiness. It was basically it was pitched as an adult version of a morning zoo type thing, and that I really enjoyed. So I would love to see that come back. Hopefully, Travis, if you're listening, buddy, you're one of our first guests we had on the show. I'm going to give you a shout out. I'm going to give everybody a shout out. All the people that have appeared on our show here and there.
And Clint Davis, of course.
Oh yeah,
He's
Clint.
done
Clint was one of the
alright.
first. Clint was one of our first guests. He was on our first episode, the box office bombs episode that we did. He was one of the first there. My good buddy Nick was on there as well. I haven't had him come back since because he's been busy and whatnot, so he hasn't made an appearance. But we've evolved the show since then. We've changed the formats here and there. It used to be where it would be part news, part theme, but after a while it just got hard to do good news every single week and keep up the theme. So I kind of have been doing these theme shows every once in a while, every single week. We'll look at a certain director or a certain series of movies, and I do like that because it allows me to keep my research concise. But I've really enjoyed doing the show. There have been a few times where I kind of fell out of it. The transition from Blog Talk when BTR started to be really bad to YouTube was a little bit rough, just because I saw my hits going down, and the constant moving to days. It just. I even went up to you, Burhan. I said there was a period where I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this. I mean, we fell off at one point, but we're slowly building up now with YouTube, which I'm very thankful for. And guys, I really do thank you guys for keeping up with the show and keeping on. You guys are the reason why. I know it's so cliched, but it is the reason why I do it. I mean, if it was a situation where it was just me, Burhan, and 5 people watching it, I don't know if I'd continue doing it.
Well, that's the thing as well. YouTube has given us an outlet to kind of do this and in a sense, because the whole network is monetized, to make money from it. And kudos to the lovely people at XSplit for basically getting this whole capture software done so that we can transition rather easily. And it's actually better quality as well. That's the one thing that I enjoy. It's far, far better quality.
It is. And speaking of quality, my camera's a lot better than I was expecting. It's an old camera. It's like 10 years old. I got it from my parents because they weren't doing anything with it, and I was kind of worried. I was trying it last night, and it made my computer blue screen, so hopefully that won't happen. Knock on wood. Oh, I don't have any wood.
Sounds
Darn
like
it.
a driver
Okay.
conflict.
Yeah, it probably was. I think when I did the research, it was an issue with the driver, but I think I fixed that up. But yeah, hopefully this will be something we do a little bit more often. Maybe if we have a really big guest. I was thinking about it last night, thinking about maybe getting some, trying to work some magic maybe, because I don't have many contacts in terms of movies. You're a little bit ahead of that than me, but I'd love to be able to have a guest like you guys had with Nigel McGuinness for Slamcast. But
well, we had Maggie on. She was very interesting. She's very talented as well.
I remember that because that was a day that I wasn't able to make it. I believe that might have been the week that I was moving, so I'm not sure if I was able to make that episode. But yeah, looking forward, I'm thinking about maybe adding interviews. We've got conventions here at the beginning of the year in Florida that have a lot of guests. In fact, MegaCon, which is one of the big Central Florida conventions, is actually doing something really big. They're not only having a Walking Dead exhibit there with some of the guests that are there, they're actually going to also have a Boondock Saints reunion because they're having Norman Reedus there and Sean Patrick Flannery. So I would love to try to see if I can talk to at least one of them. Maybe not Norman Reedus, but maybe Sean Patrick Flannery. I really do like that movie. I think Billy Connolly might be there too, but I got to recheck. But they got people from The Walking Dead coming in, a bunch of other regulars. So it's in April. So we've got plenty of time.
Billy Connolly as well is suffering from dementia.
Who?
Billy Connolly. He's suffering from dementia.
Yeah.
He was talking about it quite vividly, and how he's basically on the fact where he may end up having to give up his film career and also his stand-up comedy career, but he's plodding through. He keeps trying and trying and trying, and that's the main thing.
He's going Michael J. Fox on it, and you got to respect a guy that's willing to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I read a huge story about him quite recently, and it's been rather extremely. He's handled it extremely well, and it's one of those things that kind of makes me want to kind of go full force in terms of the career aspect. For most of you who don't know, I thought it'd give us time to sort of get to know us a little bit. I am, for those of you who've seen, a film critic, filmmaker, and also someone who's has his roots in acting. I'm an actor by trade. Even though I haven't done the majority of 2014, I haven't even acted. I've gone to auditions, but I haven't done anything.
Well, you did this job for hire, which is something.
Yeah, of course, and I am looking at bringing the series back at some point. I'm just trying to get most of the load off of myself, and see how that goes. I'm also somebody who notoriously puts his feet in and just jumps in feet first to anything that I do. it's one of the main reasons why I've gotten a lot done, but there's a lot more that I need to do. I own my own film company as well, Enigma Entertainment, and I also I'm in the process of finalising a pilot for Konami to produce a series based on the Silent Hill franchise. It's big things for me. I've always believed in the film industry, but I feel in myself, my terminology in terms of what the industry has, it's kind of lost the whole storytelling ability that it used to have, in more so to allow flashy effects and kind of, I would say kind of the Michael Bay type filmmaking, which is let's do everything in post, fuck the actors, fuck the story, fuck everything else. As long as something's there, we can do that. And it's no qualms with Bay, because I was thinking about this a lot more quite recently, Miguel, and I was sitting there thinking, why does Bay do what he does? And he comes from a dominant like music video kind of background. He always did his stuff based on the look,
Yeah, I mean, I've always said before. Yeah, I don't harp on Bay's style, and I know exactly what you mean in terms of his music video stuff. He did the video for what I consider to be one of my all-time favorite guilty pleasure songs. It's Meatloaf's "I Will Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That." If you got folks,
do anything for love.
Hate on me all you want. That song is awesome, and the video completely matches it. It really is condensed Michael Bay.
Yeah.
If you could find this video online, watch it, and you can tell immediately. I mean, within the first 5 seconds, you have Meatloaf riding away from a sunset with a helicopter in the background. If that's not Michael Bay, I don't know what is.
I will do anything for love, and I just won't do that. And also the film that he was made famous for, which I always say Brett Ratner kind of copycatted in terms of his career, and that is Bad Boys. Because Brett Ratner himself basically, the whole formula to Rush Hour is the same thing, apart from you don't have two black guys. It's kind of one black guy, one Chinese dude. Hijinks ensue, but it's pretty much the same formula. Apart from that, it's very martial arts in terms of the way that they work. But it's you can see a lot of his earlier work, and in terms of more of his story-driven pieces, he has proved he can do it, like The Rock, for instance, with Sean Connery, or Pain and Gain, which is a movie that me and Miguel talked very highly about in 2014. Where,
2013. Yeah, I put it up as my favorite film actually of 2013 when we did our first episode.
Yeah, and it's a great movie. I've said this, when we've looked at it allowed me to do a bit more research into the characters that these guys were based on. None of these guys looked as muscular as The Rock or as muscular as Wahlberg. They all looked rather different, but when you looked at the characters, it was the first time I considered The Rock to be an actor.
He stole that movie from Mark Wahlberg, and I love Mark Wahlberg, but The Rock was the star of that movie as far as I'm concerned.
High-pitchy Wahlbergness, in a sense. The way that Mark Wahlberg always does his characters is like, "Hey, how's it going? Look, I've got a high-pitched voice. I'm just going to sit there and talk like this.
What's going on, guys? Hey, come on, yeah." Like he knows how to speak stupid, and he's not a dumb guy. I mean, when he has to play serious, he plays serious, but when he knows he has to play a dumb character, or at least a character that doesn't take himself so seriously, he pulls it off, whether it's Pain and Gain, Transformers, or even Ted.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It is one of those things where you look at it and think, wow, you've got that amazing cast of talent in terms of the way this movie was done, and each and every person in that movie worked really well. But The Rock's character was so well written that it encapsulated a lot more of this dumb, brutish kind of Lenny of Mice and Men type character, who physically no one can touch him. Physically he's like fucking. He'll kill you if you. He'll squeeze your head like it's a pea. Like yeah. But in terms of the way that he acted in the character as well, it was very simplistic. It worked really well. And Dwayne Johnson, I tip my hat off to you on that. But I still think you're an idiot because you're going around telling people you were poor. You were never poor, okay? Maybe when you were training in American football, when you went to the Canadian leagues, but you were never ever poor. Your family was never broke. Your dad was in the rock and wrestling era. Your granddad, High Chief Peter Maivia, used to wrestle. prior to that, and then you getting everything handed to you in the WWE. Yes, you have talent. I'm not disputing that whatsoever. But stop lying to people. That was the one big gripe of 2014 that I had, because we did talk about that quite recently, and how I feel that Dwayne Johnson is trying to mislead people in terms of how poor he was, because he wasn't. Never poor.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I wouldn't say that he was ever poor. He's probably just playing it up, which is unfortunate,
Yeah,
but it's not the worst thing to happen.
It's probably like an agent or PR person just went, by the way, do you know how you can make yourself more appealing to everyone else? Say you were poor. You know, back when I was a kid, my family was poor. I know what broke is all about. You know, we were living on the state for most of our lives. Do you know what I mean? I'm at the moment, I'm still kind of destitute in terms of my own finances. A starving artist is a starving artist. You know, most of my...
trust me, I graduated from college with an art degree. I know what it's like to be starving.
Yeah, it's a starving artist is a starving artist. Miguel, basically, he worked for Walmart, who's one of the biggest corrupted entities in the United States, on the fact that they refuse to pay their employees basic wage, a livable wage, a livable income, and said that they will pull out any of their stores and cost thousands of jobs, just to basically strong arm the government into not forcing the issue, which is kind of it's an ambiguous situation, to say the least.
That's more of a Burhan and the boy topic.
Exactly.
That's not really.
But what we're saying is, we understand what being broke is, and a lot of people out there who do. You've begged on the streets, if you've been there on a situation necessarily where you're barely earning, you would understand that. If you're on less than minimum wage, you would understand that. But The Rock sitting there saying stuff like that is laughable. And I think, Dwayne, you owe people an apology, because as far as I'm concerned, dude, yeah, we would love you regardless of what your financial status was when you were younger. Stop lying to people.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even say that he was struggling, before he got it, when he was getting into the business. I mean, he went straight into the business at the top, so it's not like he was like a struggling indie wrestler sleeping in cars like a Mankind or something.
Yeah.
He did a spot.
He got in via his dad, and he did a spot with his friends where they were running the ropes. All they were doing was basically a wrestling routine where he would grab the guy, run him to the ropes. Guy would basically jump down. He would, jump over him, run to the ropes again. The guy would then leapfrog him, and it was like back and forth, just to see if he had some sort of discernible talent, and he did. And he had the pedigree behind him as well. I think that move's called the European. It's been a while since I've actually, done any sort of pro wrestling, and I'm still considering whether or not I will ever do it again. But it's one of those where, when you sit there and you say stuff like that, you've really got to look, from a PR standpoint, you've got to watch what you're saying and why you're saying it. He's a multi-millionaire. You should be proud of who you are and your background. In the end, was I proud that I was dirt poor? I never wanted as a kid. My parents had to settle for like low-cost clothing. I was clothed. I was mocked. I was bullied. But in the end of the day, I still managed to live. My parents did their job by making sure that I had never wanted anything, that I wore clothes, that I ate, even though it was like the cheapest thing that they could basically find. And I'm doing the same thing when it comes to my children, and it bugs me. But regardless of that, another actor that I was looking at today, who had kind of a very weird 2014, and someone who I considered in one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and that's James Franco.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, first off, let me just say, yeah, Spring Breakers is a terrible movie.
Terrible.
And I've seen every review I've read about this movie. I said the same thing. The movie's terrible, but he really put in his A game. He made the most out of the material that was in there. I mean, James Franco's a guy that I used to not like at all. I never understood his appeal. I remember him in Spider-Man, and I thought his story was good, but I thought he was a weak Harry Osborn. But as he's kind of opened himself up more to comedy, he's really pushed up his A game. And with stuff like Spring Breakers, and I remember he did one with Statham a couple, either this year or last year, where he played like a deranged redneck that was stalking Jason Statham and his daughter. Like, they said that this was really a dark character that he was able to pull off. I wish I remembered what the movie was. It
That was
might
that
have been
Stallone
called.
film, wasn't it? The one that Stallone kind of had to. Stallone wrote the character for himself, and then handed it over to Statham because he was shooting something else.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was actually Homefront. Yeah,
Mm.
Stallone wrote it, and I guess he was going to write it for himself, but couldn't get into the part. But that was actually 2013. That I heard was actually a really big movie for James Franco, and it really showed that he has the ability to really pull himself out of there. So I give James Franco a lot more credit than I would have, 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, there's a current movie that he's starring in with Jonah Hill, and Jonah Hill, in my opinion, was in one of the best films of 2014 in terms
Wolf
of
of Wall Street.
The film was a bit too long, and kind of milked it a little bit too much, but it was one of the best films of 2014 because
Actually, that was a 2013 movie. Did it come out in 2014?
I watched it in 2014.
Okay, so it's your favorite film that you watched this year, but no, I think that was a 2013 because I believe that was an Oscar movie.
Yeah.
I think that at least was up for Best Picture.
And yeah, it won nothing. And the DiCaprio brought his A game. You know, Jonah Hill brought his A game. Everyone in that movie was fucking amazing. And it proved that Jonah Hill could be considered, excluding Moneyball. I know Moneyball kind of considered that Hill to be kind of a candidate up there. And then when he went back to doing 22 Jump Street, you had more of a kind of a favourable view of Jonah, independent of what he was doing. And I checked him out, I loved the movie so much, and they've got a new movie coming out in 2015 called True Story. It's with James Franco, Jonah Hill. Franco plays a guy who basically, it kind of hits home, it hits me right in the feels, because he's a father who kills his entire family, his wife, his kids, everyone. Jonah Hill was basically a journalist who ends up getting fired from the New York Times and I believe they said he was fabricating the story that they gave him. And he said he worked with the best of what he had. The trailer is for those of you who haven't seen it. I'll put it on the Retro and Works timeline. I'll put it on my timeline. It is one of the most empowering and amazing trailers I've ever seen in my life. It reminds me of films such as Primal Fear, which Edward Norton kind of, had his acting chops in. It was one of those where you could see defined Norton as a character actor. And this defines Franco, and I think it's going to be one of the breakout movies of 2015 because it was a selection, I believe, at a festival. I'm just trying to think about what festival it was. I believe it was Rain Dance. I may be wrong there. But yeah, it's one of those big movies where I can see it will be a breakout in terms of the story, but it may be a sleeper in terms of the other big movies that come out in 2015, especially with the superhero movies that are going to be coming out this year.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get into 2015, and yeah, I could see this movie. By the way, I'm looking at the picture, some pictures off of it. I'm looking. The director's a first-time director. Same thing with the writer. I could see this maybe being a dark horse candidate. Maybe when the Oscar season comes in.
Franco is so creepy in this movie, guys. He is so creepy. And for each and every one of you out there, if you're a film buff, if you're someone that loves great storytelling and it's kind of fed up with the whole flashiness of some of these movies, then check this out. I'm going to go and see it in the cinema. I want to experience every little part of this. I'm probably going to have a nerdgasm watching this movie because I'm being someone who loves movies. This is going to be right up my alley.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the flashiness of movies and stuff. That's kind of something I wanted to bring up for 2014 in terms of a review because I've been researching 2014 because I'll be honest, I wasn't able to go to see as many movies as I did. I saw a handful of movies.
We all tried, and I have to admit, I know there's been a bit of a lackluster year in terms of Movie File. The person that I was doing Movie File with when I rebooted it, there had been an issue. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but me and him are no longer working together, and we're no longer speaking at all. So there had been an issue with this person. Now, and I'm not, as I said, I can't really go into it because, but he's a bad man. But moving on from that, I am bringing it back, and I am going to be basically doing the Movie File format and reviewing a lot more movies because I wanted to review RoboCop, and which I felt the brand new RoboCop, Miguel. Oh my god, that movie really pissed me off.
Really?
Yeah.
I've heard mixed reactions. I've heard people say that they hate it, and some people have said that it's just mediocre. That it's not a terrible movie. It's a movie that doesn't need to be. It's kind of like I'll say right now, it's kind of like the Thing remake, or prequel or whatever it's called. It's a movie that if it didn't have that legacy, just would have been a forgettable movie.
I disagree. I don't think it would have been a forgettable movie. I just think that the movie itself there was no real reason of that movie ever existing. It shouldn't have existed, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, well, it goes back to what I was saying with 2014. If there's one thing I could say about 2014 to kind of sum up my thoughts on it, this year kind of, and maybe you can agree with me on this, this year kind of played it very safe.
Yeah.
I feel like this year was a reaction almost to last year. I mean, our first episode was on the 2013 bombs, which, looking back on it, that 2013 was a disaster in terms of movies. I mean, there were so many movies, like, $100 million projects that just made no money. And when you look at the big movies that came out this year, with the exception of maybe a handful of them, I would say that this year was kind of a response to that, because I'm looking at the charts. I don't see many movies losing a lot of money, but I didn't see any movies really making money as well. I mean, do you agree with me on that?
There is an exception with what Marvel did with Guardians of the Galaxy, which...
Oh, yeah, and we'll get into that when we get into the second part.
This year's a year to... Well, 2014 was a year to be a comic book movie fan. It weren't the year to be a comic fan.
I don't follow the comics as hard as I should in terms of like the new stuff, like the new 52 and the Marvel universe as is. I've heard the Spider-Man universe has been all over the place this year.
Yeah, the Spider-Man and also Amazing Spider-Man 2, that was this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, the movie Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, that when I did my movie file on it, I looked back and I watched every single essential plot element to this movie, and it sucked balls, and a lot of it was because of the fact that everyone this year tried to do what Marvel did with their Avengers movies and stuff. The thing people don't understand is Marvel had Josh Whedon, who made sense out of bullshit. You had this huge clusterfuck that Whedon just kind of went, right, we need to make sense of this, and he did everything he could to make sense of that.
Yeah. Whedon is he's a fan. He's a fan who is a writer, and when you've got that when you have a fan writing it, there's a level of care to wanting to make a cohesive story to it that you don't get from a lot of these studio guns. These hired hands that you get to write a film. And in the case of Disney, for Avengers at least, they were smart enough to let Whedon do his own thing. You didn't see much of... I didn't hear any studio interference. They basically gave him carte blanche, and he made them $1 billion, when the first Avengers came out.
It's a shame that he's not going to be returning after Age of Ultron. I don't know if he's going to be going to like a single-tier movie, but he's not going to be returning after. He'll be... His partnership with Marvel may be over, but I hope not, because I think he could make something of one of Marvel's lesser properties.
It would not shock me if that's the case. If this is his last run with Marvel, it would not shock me if DC tried desperately to get him to come over and try to do and to try to see if he can work on a DC movie with their DC universe. Because I mean, this isn't the first time we've had this happen before. Remember Bryan Singer when DC stole him away from Marvel to do Superman Returns?
I can see this. He did the kind of emo Superman movie.
Art house Superman, as I like to call him.
Yeah.
By
the way, for those of you who want to know about it, check out An Even with Kevin Smith. He talks about this rather vividly.
Yeah, I'll say this: between Superman Returns and Man of Steel, I'll say if you had the story of Superman Returns and the action of Man of Steel, that'd be a great Superman movie. It's like Superman Returns had all the story but no action. Man of Steel had all the action and no story. Put them together, you could have a good movie on your hands. It's kind of somewhere in an alternate universe. There's the perfect Superman movie, but this universe doesn't have it.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's the big thing here. When you're looking at stuff like this, You have to look at the idiom behind it. Man of Steel was considered a box office smash. I considered it a disappointment because it seemed that, again, they kind of Michael Bay'd the movie. They wanted to focus more on action and less on story and structure. But the one person who stole the movie out from everyone else was someone that I never even considered. The gentleman who was in Noah, which I'm not a fan of. Russell Crowe. You know, Russell Crowe as Jor-El. Wow. Literally.
Yeah,
wow.
Well, I've always thought Russell Crowe was a great actor. You know, he's got a great presence to him. He's very. He's imposing. You know, he really brings the gravitas to any character he does, whether it's Maximus in Gladiator or Jor-El in Man of Steel. You know, he's not a bad actor at all.
No, he's not. But it's one of those things where we never would have kind of considered something like that, and it for me it became something that very under consideration. It worked really well. So we had that, and then you know, he kind of made that movie, and Costner was so underutilized as Pa Kent, who they ended up kind of Uncle Benning the guy.
Yeah, we've discussed Man of Steel, you know, ad nauseum. I mean, that was not only was that our second episode, and we devoted a whole episode to it. That was our highest rated episode on Blog Talk. I think that got almost 400 views from that one, which is something that I would want to try to do again. I mean, I would love to have the second episode of 2015, you know, get a 300 hit view count on YouTube, or even more, considering it's YouTube, but. Going back to what I was talking about with 2014, the reason I mentioned that was because I actually, to kind of bring it all back to the first episode, IGN recently released an article on the biggest bombs of 2014, which I have pulled up right now. And the big theme I'm noticing with this one is a lot of the bombs, quote unquote, of this year were mostly movies no one heard about. They were mostly movies that had very bad advertising. It wasn't a case in 2013 where you had a lot of big name movies bomb. Most of these just kind of were movies that no one had ever heard of. I mean, you got stuff here like Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's Return, which was that really low budget CGI movie that came out earlier in the year. You have Legend of Hercules from Rennie Harlin, which came out in January, which no one heard about. You have Draft Day, the Kevin Costner movie, which I'm not surprised that didn't make. A lot of prestige movies are on this list. Stuff like Draft Day, Get On Up, which I think is the James Brown biopic. The Identical, which was that weird Elvis impersonator movie. And I'm going to get back to that in a little bit. But really the only big budget movies I see on this list are Pompeii and Transcendence. And even then, those movies didn't lose a lot. Pompeii worldwide made 117 million out of 150.
The Pompeii was never going to basically make it. They pegged it as a disaster movie with an actor in it. And with those movies, they never usually lose money, but it wasn't something that I was very keen on, interested in watching, because it seemed like a low-budget disaster movie.
Me either. I mean, yeah, this movie may have bombed in the theaters. I had a feeling that it was at least going to make its money back in home video. This is one of those movies that you can tell it's going to find its audience on video. What was that?
It's a popcorn movie. It's one of those you can spend your night in with your loved ones or with your girlfriend and just make fun of it.
Yeah, this will be hitting FX or TNT within the next 2 or 3 years. You'll get those big 3-night weekend premieres for it. And in terms of Transcendence, you know what? That might be a case of, and we talked about this before, whether or not Johnny Depp can hold a movie on his own without playing a character.
He did hold the movie on his own. My problem with this movie was it was badly written. And I watched this over again. Because I'm going to do a movie file on it, and I wanted to basically encapsulate the idea behind this movie, and it was about love that this man had for his girlfriend. And the whole thing that triggered this was you had this terrorist group shoot him in the head, right? They then
wait a minute, shoot him in the head with a radioactive bullet.
Yeah, and then the bullet managed to miss him, but the bullet itself has basically killed him off. They transferred his consciousness into his computer, and because he had no emotions, he kind of took over. But he never did anything wrong. So they kidnapped his friend and colleague, kept him in a cage, and then went, "That's wrong." And he was like, "Yeah, you're right." no, like they weren't even
Yeah,
foreshadowing. It was just like
the good guys in the movie are the bad guys,
they're
and
the
they try to
villains.
peg them off as the good guys.
Yeah, and none of it worked because it made no fucking sense. It's like basically having the Taliban take people in and say Americans are wrong or English are wrong and we need to kill everyone, and you're sitting there going, no, they're not. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yeah, I completely. It was a missed opportunity. It was a movie that could have been good. I thought the premise was great, but yeah, from what I've heard,
it was a
that
complete
movie
waste of depth. It reminded me a lot of the Lawnmower Man, but done badly. You know,
and that's saying something because
yeah.
the Lawnmower Man isn't even a very good movie on its own.
But it still made a lot of money, and it still did. It did everything that it was supposed to do, and it told a rather vivid story. But when the Lawnmower Man 2 came out, then I kind of washed my hands of it. It could have stood on it alone on its own. It could have been a very well told story. And for me, as I said, 2014 is the year of bad writing. And it was also a year of opportunities and chances for actors who made their bread and butter in big movies like Depp, as we talked about in Pirates of the Caribbean, and Robert Downey Jr., who basically made his bread and butter doing the Iron Man movies and the Marvel films, and seeing if he could basically come out of that and stand on his own like he did with the Sherlock Holmes movies previously with what was the movie called, The Judge?
Yeah, it was one of those prestige movies.
Yes. And again, Downey was on form in this movie. He did really well in it. It was a really good movie. It was like watching his character in Ally McBeal again, you know. But the whole problem with it was people weren't interested. You know, they weren't interested in seeing him do anything other than Tony Stark. Thus has the problem. And I think it's also made him, you know, rethink his whole perspective in terms of the Marvel movies, in terms of what he wants to do now, and how he wants to go forward. So
we talked about that with Chris Evans, you know, him not wanting to continue on with Captain America, which I completely respect. I mean, I can respect a guy who has a little bit more, you know, he's got a little bit more ambition and wants to be known as more than just a character. He wants to be known as Chris Evans the actor, not Captain America.
Not Chris Evans the actor. He wants to be known as Chris Evans the director because he said that he would retire once the Marvel movie contract's done. He's not going to act anymore, folks. That's what he says. That he might not hold himself to that.
He says that, but he says that because of the fact that he felt he couldn't break out of that, because he was doing a lot of independent stuff here. I think he did a movie with Nicolas Cage a while back.
He did.
He did Snowpiercer, which I've heard is really well critically acclaimed. Which that's a movie that I think people should go out and see. He's done a bunch of other stuff, but not a lot of them made money. However, you know, with Captain America, he's made tons of money with that. It's a situation where, do I embrace the fact that I'm a character, or do I try to get out before I get sucked in, where it becomes a situation almost like a Hugh Jackman, where, you know, Hugh Jackman, I love Hugh Jackman, and I think he's got a great presence to him, but he's one of those guys that I think he knows he can't break away from the character of Wolverine, but doesn't really aspire to, you know. It's not like he's afraid to play Wolverine. If he wants to, if they want him to play Wolverine, he'll do it. But at the same time, you know, it's not like he's mad about it. You know, he gets
he's
it.
He's contracted for 2 more movies. He's contracted for the next X-Men movie and Wolverine 3, which is then they're going to see, you know, if he's going to hand it over to someone else. The thing is, and I've said this time and time again, the reason why Captain America worked so well is regardless of Evans, apart from Captain America 2, which, you know, we both saw this movie and just went, wow, we're blown away from the fact of what was done in terms of the direction of this movie and the way that it was choreographed, the way that it was written. It reminded me of an old like school espionage movie.
I've heard it's regarded as maybe like a Tom Clancy movie.
Yes,
you know.
Yeah, a lot like that. And the first movie was kind of a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of like telling Captain America's tale, and it made money. I think it made something like $700 million in the box office.
Yeah, but it was considered creatively to be a bit of a disappointment, coming off the heels of Iron Man. But
it was
then again,
very
Iron
slow
Man was,
in comparison to Iron Man's fast-paced.
Yeah.
You know,
I like Captain America. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought it was
It's the
a
best
fun little
Captain.
period piece.
At the time, it was the best Captain America movie ever made. I would consider
Yeah.
one of the best, and also had a very good origin story.
Well, that's what happens when you get the director of The Rocketeer. That's
Yeah.
the kind of movie he's going to make.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very well written, very well played out, but it was very slow in terms of its pacing. Where in terms of Iron Man, it's always very fast paced. You know, you would have those little slow moments with Stark, basically having his emotional moments and stuff, and ways to kind of humanize the character a little bit more. But when he's Iron Man, he's always on top form, very snappy. And Iron Man 2 was kind of the opposite. You know, that movie was all like freaking edge of your seat type deal. I loved it.
It was, but I tried rewatching Iron Man 2 recently, and there were a lot of plot holes and things that
Yeah,
didn't
no,
make
I agree
sense to
with you.
me.
But Captain America 2, again, you know, that, again, fast paced, very snappy, and it worked really well for the characters. And the fact they added Black Widow in there as well, and there was all this other little stuff going on in terms of the way that S.H.I.E.L.D. was breaking down, it worked. It worked extremely well, and it also played out in the TV show S.H.I.E.L.D., like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as well as they're rebuilding S.H.I.E.L.D. and trying to build these characters back up from what initially happened. They're also going into their whole sort of Inhumans arc. But
Disney's really stepping up their game in terms of creating this dense universe with the crossplay between the movies and the TV shows. And Disney, I'm going to get more into Disney in a bit because we're going to talk about them when we get into 2015.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to be, and I've also said this, when Avengers, the last part of Avengers comes out, I am going to be in my 40s. So,
yeah, it's kind of like, and I made this comment to a friend of mine. We were talking about the Harry Potter movies because I made a mention to a friend of mine who's a big fan of the movies. I would love to be able to do a retrospective, and I might try to have her on because she's reads the books and has watched all the movies, knows everything about it. And I made the comment. It's like, can you imagine that between the first movie and the last is a 10-year gap?
Yeah.
It's like some of us were children when that first movie came out, and we were adults when the final one come out. That's gonna be the same thing with these Marvel movies. From 2007 to 2018, I think, which is when they said I think the proposed final Phase 3 movies. That's almost 10 years.
And that's the thing. When it comes to the whole Avengers thing, they're looking at spearheading into the next direction of the Marvel Universe. You know, we've already basically heard Benedict Cumberbatch being casted as Doctor Strange. You've got Chadwick Boseman, the gentleman who played, I believe, was it James Brown?
I believe so, yeah.
Which I recently watched. Very good, very polarizing movie, by the way, for anyone who
Get
wants
On
to
Up?
watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was on the list of bombs, though. But I figured that was going to be the case. I didn't expect it to be big.
The acting was sublime. I felt that the story being told was great, but it kind of kept mishmashing. You know, 1 minute it was in one place, 1 minute it was another. It was very hard to kind of follow in a straight line. Plus, it wasn't like, you know, when I look at kind of biography movies, I look at movies like Ali. Ali was properly told. You had amazing direction. With Will Smith, you had great character acting as well in it. In Get On Up, you had, you know, Chadwick Boseman doing an amazing James Brown. He was amazing in it. But in terms of diversity and story, they wanted to include so much in the movie that they kind of missed stuff out. And the story wasn't told in a perspective of having it go in a straight line. It was fragmented. So 1 minute you had him like going through his adult years, next minute he's back as a child again. Then he's an adult, then back as a child again, and they kept pushing back, going back and forth. And if you miss one little thing, you tend to miss the entire movie. And I think the reason why it bombed was the fact that I don't think it appealed to a broad audience. And that's the problem. And, you know, and we did say as well, in 2014, the cinema changed. You know, they've changed to more episodic formats now in terms of movies being made. Studios are trying to go for franchises, like, you know, with the Hunger Games, with the Marvel Universe, with comic books, with trying to find stories that they can tell and tell them in trilogies or quadrilogies, so they can make the most money out of them. Hence the reason why Disney acquired like the Star Wars franchise. Now we've seen kind of small little remnants of episode 7, which I'm looking forward to. It looks amazing, but again, I'm kind of in the whole mindset of everyone who watched episode 1, which was great trailer, could be a very sucky movie.
Yeah, I'm going to. You know what? I'm not going to worry about episode 7. I think there's enough good talent behind that to get it going, and really this is gonna be the movie that I think this generation should have in terms of movies. But that's 2015, and I don't want to talk about that yet. But
Of course.
in terms of 2014, you mentioned James Franco as really a standout. In terms of 2014 for me, if I had to pick somebody who I think kind of at least the first big bit of 2014 that really to me stood up and became at least in terms of a name, a leading man, surprisingly enough, is Kevin Hart. I was researching the first
he freaking knocked down the door. He was in everything last year.
Yeah, he was in. I was doing. Well, I guess we can go into the first third then of the year. I'm gonna separate the year in thirds. We've got January to April. We'll do May to August, and then August onward. So for the first third of the year, I probably have to say, yeah, Kevin Hart pretty much ran that year between Ride Along, between Think Like a Man 2, the About Last Night remake, and I believe he's got a movie coming out now in 2015. He's really stepped his game up and really made a name for himself, not just from his comedy, but as, at least in terms of comedies, a leading man, a guy that you can put in a movie and sell.
The thing is, he's funny, but he's not. Every character he plays is him. He's not.
He's a character actor, and he has that character. He plays a character, and he plays the same character, but it works. He knows how to work that character, and he's got a great charisma. Here's the thing about Kevin.
The whole Eddie Murphy thing going on. He's not going to ever be a standout in terms of character actors. He's going to be a comedian who's going to be in movies. Kind of the same thing that Richard Pryor had at one point.
Yeah. Pryor just needed better. He needed a good agent. But in terms of Kevin Hart, I don't worry about him. He's one of those guys that I think is genuine. He's not one of these hacky comedians who is big with people because he plays a certain stereotype or something like that. He's legitimately funny and legitimately likable, and he really stepped his game up for 2014. He's really a guy that stood out for me. But going back to the first third of 2014, from that period of January to April, what would you say is the big standout for that in terms of a movie? I think I know which one, but I'm going to let you say.
January to April. I think one of the movies that stood out for me was X-Men Days of Future Past.
That was May, if I'm not mistaken. April, I think, actually, if we were going with January to April, I figured you were going to say Cap 2, because Captain America 2 came out in April.
Yes. Cap 2, and a lot of that was because they changed the definition of what made a Captain America movie and what made a comic book movie, and they showed that they could make a comic book movie look legitimate. It had great writing, great structure, great story, great pacing, great character acting as well. Evans looked more comfortable in his role as Cap. You had Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow in that as well. She was mostly eye candy, but she also worked as a kind of a comedic foil to him at some points. You had kind of the undersold Falcon in that movie as well. Who was the gentleman that played Falcon? I'm trying to figure out what his name was.
Anthony something. I forget his. Anthony Mackie.
Yeah, they are pegging him to be the next Cap, which I don't think is going to happen.
You know what? I think with the right writer or in the right situation, they could make it work. We'll have to see where they decide to take it, because Disney has full control over the whole property. So
they've been shoehorning him into the role currently in the comic books, so it might happen in the filmverse. Who knows?
Yeah.
One of my, and I'll talk a little bit about one of my most disappointing things of 2014 for me was when they revealed the whole cast for Annie. And this whole obsession that Hollywood seems to have at the moment with casting against type. I think people have gone completely and utterly overboard in doing it. There's certain times when it will work. There's other times you sit there and think, why are you doing this? It makes you like scratch your head in a sense. But breakout movie 2014 April, I would say would be Cap.
I originally was going to go with Cap, but I figured that was going to be your choice, so I went with a different one for the first bit of 2014. I'm actually going to go the Lego Movie. I think that one surprised a lot of people.
It showed what you could do with basically these characters if you give them a chance to actually have a good writing, good story, and some good actors behind it as well. Because most of these guys were seasoned vets who did this movie.
Yeah, it was one of those movies where it could have easily just been a throwaway. They could have easily just cranked this out, had gotten, some studio hack to direct, gotten a bunch of, actors that weren't doing anything, and this could have basically broken even. But the directors,
food fight basically.
It could have been food fight, yeah. But they got Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who have really broken out in terms of their movies between this and the Jump Street franchise. They ran with it, and they got a great cast of voice actors. They really showed the imagination that you could do with a franchise when you have the creative ability to, and they've taken the Lego movie series and made $1 billion franchise. I mean, I guarantee we're going to see at least 2 or 3 more Lego-based movies.
Yeah, they're going to spawn it out as well. Apparently, they're going to be spinning the franchise off into a Lego Batman movie because of the fact that what's his name? Played BoJack Horseman. Trying to figure what his name is.
The directors? Or the actor that played the voice?
The actor that played the voice of Lego Batman.
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett. Sorry, Will. He kind of stole the show in that movie. So apparently they're going to be doing a Lego Batman movie, and with DC's permission, of course. And he's going to be returning for the Lego Movie 2. So, Will Arnett was the kind of the breakout guy in that movie, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, when I first heard that they were making the Lego Movie, I scoffed. I was like, oh, it's just going to be a throwaway cash-in movie. And this one really surprised a lot of people. And I'm going to say it right now, given that we don't have many animated features coming out, I'm going to say right now I see the Lego Movie winning Best Animated Feature for the Oscars. I'm going to put my stamp of approval on that. Not that it matters. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be putting my hat into the Academy and giving them a vote, but you heard it here.
They would have to re-release from the Oscar period, though, wouldn't they? Because I don't know
if
they would have to do a re-release on the Oscar period. I don't think it might happen.
To get people to notice, I mean, it came out in I believe February of last year, so I think it's still February 2014. So I think it counts, but I believe it's not so much that it's out of the range of the Oscars. It's the fact that they might forget about it. Which, honestly, given that there's not many other animated features coming out this year, I don't think anybody's going to forget about it. I mean, what other animated feature came out this year that's worth mentioning?
None.
Yeah, I can't really think of.
We have the Marvel and DC animated straight to DVD stuff, but
nothing in terms of theatrical stuff. I mean, Pixar didn't come out with anything this year, unfortunately, so I can't really think of anything. And folks, if you're listening to us on YouTube and you can remember, let us know. I'm sure Burhan's keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, in terms of the first third, aside from Cap and the Lego Movie, I can't really think of any other movies. I mean, we talked about the RoboCop remake. We talked about Pompeii. Really, it was a very ho-hum first third. I mean, really, this was all build up for the next bit we're going to talk about, which is the summer season. May, June, July, and August. When
did 22 Jump Street come about? Was that the summer season?
Yeah, that might have been summer season. Let me check real quick, because I know I was just recently looking at it to get the name of the directors.
I know that stole the show.
That was... I was not shocked at 20... Well... Let me say this. I wasn't initially a fan. No, it was June. It was the summer season movie. But I'll say this. When I first saw bits and pieces of 21 Jump Street, I wasn't impressed. I was just like, oh, it's Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. I was not a fan of either one of these in terms of comedy. But 22 Jump Street, you can really tell that they embraced the characters and they really embraced the type of movie they were in, because I've seen clips of it. I really do want to go see this movie. This movie looks like a lot of fun. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen that Mexican standoff scene and just laughed hysterically. Just the way that Channing Tatum delivers that line. You know which line I'm talking about.
Yeah. Good. Do you want to do it?
My name's Jeff. I love that line. I love Jonah Hill's delivery. It's like, hey, they call you the Mexican Wolverine. It's like, that's Hefe right there. I do love that, and you know what? I hope the rest of the movie is just like that. I have a feeling it is.
It is. It's a
So
really, really good movie. I've seen it. I watched 21 Jump Street on Netflix, and it made me excited for this movie because I sat there and I was just like, it's for a 21 Jump Street movie. I was like, I'm glad they didn't go super kind of,
serious.
yeah, like what they did with Miami Vice. They kind of went the joke route, like Starsky
Well,
and Hutch, and it worked.
I respect the fact that Miami Vice went serious. I mean, it was Michael Mann directing it. He was the original showrunner for Miami Vice. So one of the original showrunners. So I give him credit for wanting to keep that serious nature. I don't know if the movie's any good or not. I haven't seen it, but I give him respect for that because it could have easily been a throwaway comedy.
It
Which
didn't. It just really didn't work. It was one of those where I looked at it and was like, why did they go that route? There could have been another way to do it, but they went that side. They went totally that route, and it just nearly killed off any. And plus with the acting as well, I felt Jamie Foxx was a bit too serious in it. Colin Farrell didn't really work in terms of what
Well, I
he
mean, if
did.
you've ever seen Miami Vice, the show itself is very serious. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we make fun of it with the whole Dayglow thing going on, but it's a very serious show. It was pretty heavy for the '80s. So, like I said, I give him credit for trying, but like I said, knowing what it could have been, considering all the bad comedic adaptations we have of movies, it could have, it probably isn't very good, but at the same time, it could have been like Land of the Lost bad, which that movie is abysmal.
Oh, that was the one with with Will
Will
Ferrell.
Ferrell.
Oh god, I remember that.
I got forced to watch Elf over the Christmas season because my little sister likes that movie.
It's still really bad. That's another
Yeah.
guy who's kind of waned in terms of his star power. Will Ferrell really hasn't found his niche. He's become kind of Sandler-esque in terms of value because he doesn't really have that same pulling power that he used to.
No, he really has become like a low rent Sandler, which is funny you mentioned Sandler because he actually popped up on this list for bombs as well for Men, Women, and Children, which he was a part of an ensemble piece, but that movie didn't make any money either. $60 million budget, only made $2 million, which is unfortunate because it was directed by Jason Reitman, who Ivan Reitman's son. He did Juno, and I believe he did another famous movie. I'm not sure. Let me just to Wikipedia. Let's see, Jason Reitman. Thank You for Smoking. No, he's a producer on that. Let's see, Young Adult. Yeah, so he's done some good, Judd Apatow-esque comedies, but it's unfortunate. Adam Sandler, going back to somebody else who's really fallen from grace. 2014 was not very good for him either.
Well, he still managed to make bank for a lot of his movies.
For
But,
Blended,
yeah.
yeah.
I think as an audience, people really like the crap, I think a lot of it has to do with the internet, with like film and TV critics over here who've basically celebrated trash. And because we've celebrated mock trash, people tend to go to the cinema and watch it. And Sandler has been a big thing because he marketed a deal with Netflix now, who've signed him on to produce original content for that stream media, which I'm kind of like, a bit offish with.
And I hate to be negative on this, but Adam Sandler to me is the perfect. He's my go-to example for why, when I tell people why opinion on the internet doesn't matter to the mainstream as much, I point to Adam Sandler. Everybody on the internet knows how bad Adam Sandler is, yet your average everyday person that doesn't have the internet or doesn't pay attention to that, they love the guy. It's kind of like whenever I talk to some social justice warrior or some of these people who are adamant that's like, oh, why everybody says this is bad, why does this person still makes money? Well, because just because the internet is accessible doesn't mean everybody uses it. Adam Sandler's a perfect example for it. Because if everybody used the internet, everybody would know how bad Sandler is.
No, but I think people do it because they like to celebrate cheese. The Room
Not
is
even-
one of the big things.
but,
The Room
Here's
managed to
the
make
thing, though.
a ton
Here's
of
the
money
thing, though.
after the fact. After it
Here's the
lost
problem
money.
with comparing that. It's fun. It's fine to compare that to something that clearly it was made with little ambition and on a low budget. That's kind of, the fact that it exists is harmless. Sandler, he makes millions of dollars with these movies, and they're terrible. They're not very good. And I've tried watching them. I tried. Oh, excuse me. I've tried watching stuff like what was the movie that I tried watching? Grown Ups.
Yeah.
Grown Ups. I tried watching that movie. That movie's abysmal. But and I'll give Grown Ups credit. I think it basically made its money back on the fact that it's got an ensemble cast. It's got, names. But Adam Sandler, man, I really wish that he would have a year like 2013 without the Grown Ups 2. Like, Grown Ups 2 is the only reason why 2013 wasn't a complete failure for him. Between That's My Boy and Just Go With It and Jack and Jill, if it wasn't for the fact that Grown Ups 2 came out that same year, he would be dead. He would be done. But, it kept him long enough, and then Blended came out and made money. I needed to get that out of my system. But yeah, let's move on from Adam Sandler.
But that's the thing. There's been a lot more crappy content coming out from people like Sandler, and a lot of people tend to kind of ignore that fact. And it's because, even Sony have said they needed to distance themselves from him because it seems like that's all they're known for: crappy Sandler movies.
Yeah, and like I said,
Sandler's made a career off doing this, but it is one of those things you look at it and think, God, there's so much bad content from this guy as opposed to good. It's like watching a YouTuber that has been hilariously great, continuing just to make money, and then it's becoming forced, and it's just like you can clearly see that the person's run out of ideas, but they just want to continue making it because they get a free holiday out of it.
Yeah, he's become complacent, and it's really unfortunate because when he does do serious films, like I'm almost positive he's probably good in Men, Women, and Children because it wasn't a movie he produced.
Yeah,
I'm almost positive he's fine. It's just like Punch Drunk Love, Reno for me, that Don Cheadle movie that he did. Funny People. When he's in a movie where he can actually act, he's not that bad. But it's a situation where I think he knows people don't care about his acting; they just care about him, falling in poo and being juvenile. And it's so unfortunate that he makes so much money when you consider how many great comedies out there and great comedians are still floundering. It really does make me hurt. It makes my stomach hurt when I think about it.
Hey, but there's always Louis C.K. who's making tons of money, despite the fact. So everyone can take pride in that.
Louis is awesome. Louis C.K. I'm a huge fan of his comedy, but
he's also basically a guy who engineered a lot in terms of bringing like the comedic branding over to himself. His TV series is done on a low budget. He owns the rights to the entire series, so if the network decides to drop it, he can move it somewhere else.
And he was the first, and he pioneered the whole self-distribution thing. He was the first guy to go, I'm gonna basically put this out on the line. If you want to pay for it for whatever price you want, go ahead. I'm not gonna go through a third party for it. And his live show that he did for that made tons of money.
Yeah. And he even does it so that when he sells out on seats, he does like $5 shows and stuff like that. So that he fills up big, huge venues. On a budget, and he's done really, really well from it, and he's made millions based on that fact.
So the moral of the story, folks: screw Adam Sandler, support Louis C.K.
Correct.
Now let's move on to the rest of the summer, because the summer, this is where really the rubber hits the road for me in terms of 2014 being very meh. Because aside from maybe a good start and maybe one big movie, and we'll get into that big movie in a second. This was a very ho-hum summer blockbuster season. I mean, we did a whole episode on the fallout. The fact that I think for the first time since 1998, there was no movie that really, I believe it was no movie that made $1 billion here in America. I forget what the article was about. Let me see if I can re-find it, because it's been several months since we found that article. Worst summer movie.
But the thing is, they consider it a worst summer ever, despite the fact, and it's the thing, the film industry never used to make $1 billion in terms of film sales, in terms of cinema gross. Movies would make money after the fact. It was always that case back in the day. where if you made a movie and it didn't do well in cinema, you'd have a look at DVD sales, you'd have a look at worldwide distribution sales, and see if the studio makes their money back. Nowadays, every movie has to gross $1 billion, otherwise it's considered a failure.
Yeah, and it's weird that that's the case this year because we talked about last year with the summer season and how many movies flopped from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple flops during the summer season, but not by a lot. I mean, I'm looking at the list IGN put out, and yeah, there's only really one summer movie that really bombed. Really bombed. Everything else, at least, either made its money back, made it an even killing, or basically made more money than it should. I mean,
was that the
even
Expendables that bombed?
Yeah, well, it was a tie. It was between The Expendables and Sin City 2, which I still maintain I really did like Sin City 2 and
Sin City
Expendables
2
3.
was promoted, and both these movies were done by Lionsgate, who for some reason cut back on their marketing budget. They really did not promote these movies, apart from the exception of Expendables when it was promoted over here, because they did a cinema, because I was there at the Odeon Cinema when they promoted the movie. They had Stallone turn up with his kids and his wife and everybody, Statham. Every single actor that was in this movie turned up and was there, like, talking to the crowd, negotiating, and basically enjoying it. You had some very high-paying guests, people who won competition tickets, and who went to watch this movie, and people were tweeting it socially on social media. It made, a presence. But over in the States, it was kind of a whisper. They didn't really do much. And one of the things that bugged me about it as well, to make it PG, they kind of jump-cutted everything.
Yeah, that was really annoying.
Yeah. But it was, for me, it was actually a fairly better directed to Expendables movie. Had a very good story, and Stallone wasn't the main focus. Which, thank fuck for that, because every time this guy starts to talk now, due to the excessive amounts of growth hormones, is what you hear. It's kind of like a fucking mumble, and he wasn't given the spotlight this time around. You had Wesley Snipes in it, who was given his own little bit. Statham, you had a lot of different people in there. The one thing that did annoy me was they kind of made his entire team secondary, so they weren't given kind of a voice. They gave all these new guys a chance who obviously weren't really that good in terms of connecting with their audience. But apparently they are going to do another movie from this, which will be there may be the last movie in the Expendables franchise.
Yeah, I've heard that it's either going to be Expendables 4 or it's going to be that Expendables, the female Expendables thing, which I'm not sure about that. I mean, hey, I'm not sexist or anything like that, but I don't know. I in the wrong hands, that movie could basically just turn out to be a big budget Charlie's Angels, which I don't think we need.
And the thing is, as well, you looking at it again, it shows that Hollywood goes mad when something's successful. When they see one group of people do something, everyone's imitating it. It's kind of the whole casting against type thing that I was talking about. They seem to go mad on this, and they do it, and when it flops, they're like, oh, we should never have done that in the first place. Because your audience doesn't want that. They want proper stories, and I think one of the things that really pisses me off at the moment is they just seem to ignore that, which is a shame. But we'll talk about it a lot more later on.
Yeah, this summer blockbuster season, like I said, it seems like either movies basically broke even, or even ones that didn't break even really didn't lose that much. But at the same time, like I said, it wasn't like it's kind of the catch-22. It's like it's almost like if the studios don't make every movie this big budget multi-million $100 million movie, then it won't make its money back. But what do you think this is going to show to the studios? Do you think they're going to get this and be like, well, this is why we have to take the risks because we won't make any money back, or do you think they're just going to play it a little bit more careful?
They're going to be quick fix. That's what they tend to do. And I think the whole issue with the film industry as it is at the moment is the cinema is changing. We're moving to the internet and live stream media now. Where if Netflix is anything to show, that's become a powerhouse in its own right. You've got people migrating over to watching movies at home because they don't want to pay the obscene prices of going to the cinema. It's become a social kind of an experiment in terms of environment. You'll go and watch a movie. Why do you have to go and watch a movie and have to deal with fucking stupid kids screaming at a movie or people talking on their cell phones, where you can do it at home and you can choose who you can watch these movies with? Why
I think it was also Oh, go ahead.
Why pay extortionate prices when you can just basically pay for the movie at home? And they are experimenting with like cable on demand services where they'll release a movie in the cinema and on demand at the same time. But the same issue that currently is apparent is they're going to focus more on these franchises. They're going to focus more on building characters and stories and give it kind of an episodic format like a miniseries, which will basically help them pull in the major money because it's proven that it has worked. Marvel, in terms of every movie they've made, it's rare that a movie won't gross over $1 billion, and in terms of the franchises, like now check out what Stallone's doing now with a new project called Creed, which he's going to try and spawn it off the Rocky franchise. And he's hoping that will work, so they'll make more Creed movies, and Stallone's Rocky character is going to become like a secondary character in that. So it's going to be a continuation of the Rocky franchise without Rocky.
That barely worked for Rocky 5. I don't think it's going to work for this. I'm really
again, not. Then you've got like the whole like them adapting books, the 50 Shades of Grey thing that's going to turn into a freaking multi-billion-dollar franchise because every single woman who enjoyed those books are going to migrate to the cinemas to watch this pile of shit.
I've said it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. That movie might not even be bad because, you get the right director for that, and maybe the right writer. You can spin gold out of, you could spin gold out of sewage if you try hard.
It's going to be girl porn. It'll be girl porn.
It is. But that's not saying that you can't make good. You can make. I've said it before. Between movies like Secretary and Basic Instinct, you can do an erotic thriller
but
if
Basic
done
Instinct
properly.
Had a story and a structure, and no offense, Basic Instinct probably made a lot more money on home video than it did in cinemas because people could jerk off at home to Sharon Stone's Minge. The fact is, this movie is not designed to be a cinema breakout, but it will be.
It's going to make it's.
I will guarantee you in 2015 you will have someone being arrested for fapping off to this movie in the cinema. Some dude having his cock out in the cinema. It's going to happen.
Not even, because I think the movie right now is rated R. Yeah. I highly doubt it. Unless it's going in unrated or NC-17, this movie's not going to get a rise out of anybody. But you're going to get a lot of fans of the books going to go see it, and like I said, I don't think it's going to be good porn, but it might, getting the right person to direct it, it might not be a bad erotic thriller. It might be mediocre at best. So I'm going to keep my hopes up. I'm not going to go see it because I have no interest in it. But neither. I'm not going to dump. Yeah, I'm not going to dump on it now. I'll wait until the reviews come out.
Unless a girl asks me to go and watch this movie with her, I'm probably not going to go and see it.
Most definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, the thing about it is. Again, we also saw because the problem is you could look at it this way as because it's an own book franchise, it will guarantee money. Because it's female porn, it might not because what was that Charlotte LaBelle film that came out, part 1 and 2 of Nymphomaniac. That didn't make much. It was
but that was not. But that wasn't a known franchise. It was I think it was I forget who the director was, but it was not promoted as it wasn't based off of of an already established property.
Yeah, it was a puff piece. It was kind of something to show, look how amazing and how out of the box in terms of my acting ability I am for Balth.
And to be fair, if you told me Willem Dafoe was in an erotic thriller, I probably wouldn't want to rush out to see it unless it's Body of Evidence because I had Madonna in it back when she was still sexy.
Yeah, but again, by the way, for those of you who want to see it, go to the League of Super Critics YouTube channel and check out the Madonna, Cinemadonna that the Todd and Shadows does. Yeah,
he hasn't done Body of Evidence yet. He just did Truth or Dare. He hasn't gone to the point. I think his next review. His next review, I think, is going to be A League of Their Own, that baseball movie that Madonna was in. But I mean,
saved by Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks saved that movie. And Madonna being a bit part in that. But if you want to check out all of her catalogue and someone giving it a kind of a fair and just review, check that out. I'm probably never going to do anything like that because as an actress, I don't rate her at all. She was, for me, I consider her as eye candy. In terms of a musician, I don't even rate her now. I used to. When she used to think out of the box, she was kind of Lady Gaga-ish. Nowadays, it's kind of this...
Quaint.
She seems like an old woman desperate for attention.
Yeah, it's quaint at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of hard to be anti-establishment when you're in your 50s, you know?
Yeah. Because what's been said and done has been said and done before.
Yeah.
Now, going back to it, you know, we've seen also looking at 2014 the continued fall of Shia LaBeouf. He seems to be getting in a lot of fucking trouble every time someone even talks to this guy. You know,
he is a perfect example of just what happens when you're too successful too young.
Yeah.
He clearly is hitting that period. Same thing with what's her name, the Nickelodeon chick, Amanda Bynes.
Yeah.
You know, when you get so big so fast and you're not mature enough to deal with that, you go insane, and that's kind of what happened with Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, and there's also these allegations that he continued 2014 tweeting about the allegations that he was in an art exhibition, that he was nearly raped. Set everyone on Twitter at him. I mean, literally at the guy, because it turned out that these were like lies. That it was like, it was never reported to the police. You were lying. You know, you're just trying to basically set people up. He was kind of doing a reverse CM Punk as well. You know, Punk broke the internet. Shia LaBeouf seems to basically get everyone against him. Because he keeps making up fabrications and lies, stealing other people's properties. He did that this year as well when he did a film where I believe he stole it from like was it a poem or a book or something?
It's something. The movie's name is something.com.
Yeah. He released it online. It was his first directorial project. And it failed miserably, and he nearly got sued over it because he stole someone else's work.
Yeah, it was, the movie's name is howardcantor.com.
Yeah. Again, it's him to show how amazing he is. And my whole problem with him, to a fact, is I don't have a big issue with Shia LaBeouf. I just feel like he needs to step out the spotlight, recuperate, and salvage what is left of his career, kind of what Downey did a couple of times, because Robert Downey Jr. is so talented. He managed to, he screwed up twice, and he went away, came back, and rejuvenated himself, in a sense.
Yeah, I don't hate Shia LaBeouf as an actor. I don't blame him for the Transformers movies. But he's a guy that I think needs to mature. He needs a couple years, maybe a year or two out of the limelight to just get his stuff together. And, maybe he can go back to Spielberg, and Spielberg can help him out, because Spielberg, for some reason, still loves him. He puts him in everything. So, what?
That's why he's Jewish. You know what it is. It's he's kind of doing a solid for a fellow Jew. I've got no issue. I'm part Jewish myself, so there you go.
Well, I mean, you're British as well, so maybe you can hook up with like Guy Ritchie or something.
Yeah, part Palestinian here, people. I would love to do a film with Guy Ritchie. Even though I hated a lot of the films that he did after kind of Lock, Stock, and Snatch. I did like the Sherlock Holmes movie, and I felt that he knows what he can do, and he's extremely skilled. I just think he hasn't found that right that film for him yet, and he was another person who was a victim of his own success, being a director. Hey, you know what, Christopher Nolan, if you need an actor for one of your movies, someone who's not known at all, just give me a shout.
Well, let's kind of close up the summer movie season then by saying what our big MVP of the summer season was. Ladies and gentlemen, 1, 2, all together now. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, definitely. It was
movie took over.
Marvel proved that they could get an unknown director, they can get some unknown actors, put them in an ensemble cast movie, and let it shine. And the movie basically made like $1 billion in the box office, worldwide records. Everyone wants to see it. Some people even saw it twice. It made like a fucking household name of Chris Pratt, the lead actor in there as well, showed what he could be. He's a sex symbol now because of it. It made Dave Bautista seem credible, and I've watched that movie. I went to finally go and see it, and I loved Bautista's character in it. His Drax. The fact is, it shows what a good written character could do with someone who's not even considered a proper actor. And Dave managed to, it's like every single word. I love the bit where Rocket goes, his race, they always take everything literal. And he's like, no, we don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like yeah, the metaphors just kind of go over his head. Nothing goes over my head. My
head.
reflexes are too strong. I would
Yeah,
grab it.
yeah. And and it was one of those like you sit there and you laugh at it because he's playing it stale. He's playing it like straight, and it worked, and it really really worked for what the character is. You know, a lot of the breakouts were Vin Diesel's Groot. He basically, when I saw the documentary on it, he does the character in different languages. He does it in different using like different what's the word,
Inflections.
inflections. Yes, he does it with different inflections. He plays the character so strongly, and he has faith in it. And apparently, it's not the first Marvel character that he's going to play. He will probably be returning as Groot in Guardians 2, but also he may be debuting in Inhumans as, you know, he's going to be using his mug in that. But they haven't yet casted the character for him yet. But I'm you know. I'm psyched for this, and I think it's showing a lot more of his acting chops as well. And he's excited, and I love that. You know, you had Rocket Raccoon in there, who's played by someone for
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, who's had like kind of Oscar nods. A guy I consider a very underrated actor. If you've ever seen Limitless, he's amazing in that movie. The one he did with Jennifer, what's her name, from the Hunger Games.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence, thank you.
Are you
Sorry,
talking
guys.
about Silver Lining Playbook?
Silver Linings Playbook. I watched that. That was amazing. He knows how to play a character, and he does really, really well. He's going to be in this year's. He's got a movie coming out this year as well.
American Sniper.
American Sniper, where he plays a military guy. I want to go and watch it. I support Bradley Cooper. I'm going to wear my I Heart Bradley Cooper T-shirt. He's for me. I think he's going to have a breakout 2015. Chris Pratt. I don't think he's going to have a breakout 2015 in terms of.
We'll talk about that in terms of the next big movie he's signed to.
But yeah, Guardians, everything gelled well, and I have to give a big shout out to James Gunn for this. It was a passion project for him, and he worked really well on it. He was a guy who was considered a B-movie trauma director, who did a game, Lollipop Chainsaw, as a writer on that game, and sort of kind of the game, working with the game's director on that as well.
Suda 51.
Suda 51, one of my favourites. And no one, including himself, I didn't consider him to be amazing in this. When I saw them cast Batista, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, you know, this is going to be bollocks.
Everybody pegged Guardians of the Galaxy as the first flop for the Marvel Universe. No one had any faith in it, and I think that's one of the big reasons why so many people gravitated to it. It was the same thing that happened with Iron Man.
Yeah.
No one expected Iron Man to be anything. I remember when they first announced the Marvel Universe, I was like, yeah, this Iron Man thing is going to be great, but wait till you see the Captain America movie. That's going to be the big movie that really gets people, you know, excited and whatnot, and it was the exact opposite.
Yeah,
you know,
and it worked for what it was. And a lot of, you know, if you watched or read the articles, what Downey basically talked about it in the interviews, he said that Iron Man 1 was a clusterfuck. You know, the movie itself, the script wasn't even done by the time of shooting. You know, and I looked at it and I was saying, wow. And a lot of it was ad-libbed by him and Jon Favreau. And the thing is, people don't understand how much of a talent Downey is. The guy can sing, the guy can dance, the guy can do everything. You know, if you've seen Chaplin, go back, for those people who love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, go back to the 90s and see his catalogue of stuff he's done. He is like one of the most sleeping talents never to win an Oscar. He's a guy who should have won an Oscar like probably 4 or 5 times over. So
he was nominated for Chaplin.
Yeah.
He got nominated. He was nominated for Best Actor for that movie.
Yeah, never won it.
Yeah.
He's one of those who should have won it. And a lot of the reason I think he got sidetracked was because he let his demons beat him. But he came back, and he came back strong. He was someone and now he's very, very humble as well. You know, if you ever talk to the guy, he's amazing. And someone who, for me, I believe, again, that the sad thing is people don't recognize him apart from the Marvel movies. That's the sad part. And you know, Chris Pratt, again, you know, solid job in this. Everyone did such a solid job. Such a well-told story. Such an amazing, amazing movie. And for those of you, I believe it's out now on Blu-ray here in the UK, buy it. Buy this movie. Support it.
my parents bought a copy of it. I might actually get my own copy of Guardians. I'm surprised I don't have many Marvel movies in my collection, but I think I'm gonna have to add that to it. Kind of dovetailing off of what you were saying, though, because I can't really add much to it. What really surprised me about Guardians was during the summertime, this movie was #1 in the box office here in the U.S. for months.
Yeah, same here in
Well,
the UK.
yeah, and in this era, for a movie like that to stay in the box office in #1 for that long, you don't see that anymore.
And
You
it was
don't
a
see a
sleeper hit as
movie.
well because it didn't. The budget on this movie wasn't consistent of like the same budget as Amazing Spider-Man 2. You know,
Yeah.
it was considered. They were like, right, this is the movie. This is the way that we're going to do it. And the funny thing about it is the comic book writer who the guy who re-engineered the Guardians, who basically got the concept then put onto big screen. I talked to him at the MCM Comic Expo. His name kind of escapes me. Just go and check out the Guardian books. He writes a lot of books. He's a British novelist, and the whole space exploration thing. Now, his idea was the one that was credited to this, that made this, and the fact that now a lot of people, including Paramount, are trying to copy that formula and the way that the Guardians movies are in order to bring out like franchises like their Star Trek franchise. It astounds me, and it's something that I kind of disagree with, because you hit lightning in a bottle, and it's time to just keep moving forward. Don't ever try and copy and paste something, because it's not going to work.
Marvel's setting a lot of trends for movies, and some of them may work, some of them might not. We'll have to look forward, because Marvel's got their next bit of moves coming in, but we'll get to that in a second. I'm not going to spend too much time on the third half of the series, because honestly, it's kind of the same thing with the first half with the first bit of 2014. There wasn't much in the way of hits aside from Hunger Games Part 1 and the Hobbit movies. It was really very ho-hum as well. I mean, I can't think of any other big movies. It was kind of run off from the summer season.
Was
I
it
mean, yeah,
Mockingjay Part 1 was the one that was that Part 2?
Mockingjay Part 1 came out this year, and you've got Battle of the Five Armies from The
No.
Hobbit coming
Yeah, that
out.
was
Other than that, yep.
that was the Hobbit, basically. That was us saying goodbye to the Hobbit, basically, on that one.
Was that a Part 1, or was that just one movie?
I think that was that might be wrong. That might be Part 1.
Yeah, because that's the new thing. It's like, your final movie has to be a Part 1 and Part 2, because that's just how the movies are. Not that Tolkien isn't adverse to that type of style, but I mean, The Hobbit really. And I was actually talking to somebody about this at a Christmas party, well, New Year's actually. The Hobbit really. They're stretching that franchise they really stretched a lot to get that movie to 3 films. So if it is a Part 1, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, because the original director dropped out, didn't he? I remember Peter Jackson did the entire thing. He was going to be as producer on the movie, and Guillermo del Toro was going to be the guy who
Yeah.
directed it. He dropped out. He didn't feel that he could make the project work and dropped out, which was a shame. But Jackson took over, and Jackson made it probably equal to or even better than the original franchise.
I like Guillermo del Toro, but to me, Peter Jackson is he's like Guillermo del Toro if you want an Oscar-winning movie. Like to me, they almost are cut from the same cloth in a way. They're both very old school genre directors, but Peter Jackson, I think, has a step up in terms of he's a guy that you can make. He's the guy. Guillermo del Toro can make you money. Peter Jackson can make you Oscars. He's kind of become the Oscar darling in terms of that. And that's not saying anything wrong. I love Guillermo del Toro. In fact, you pitched the idea a couple weeks back, and eventually we are going to do a retrospective on him. I just got to actually sit down and watch some of the movies that he's directed, because he's directed a lot of films that I didn't expect, like, a lot of Spanish films, which I don't know if we're going to get to, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, in terms of 2014, the kind of end of it, there's not much you can really say about it. So I can't really. I can't really say much except to kind of just move on to 2015. Is there anything else you want to kind of add to round out 2014?
Yeah, in terms of 2014, the lessons that we need to learn at the moment is there needs to be more storytelling because I think we're losing a lot more of that. And one of the biggest films of 2014 had storytelling in it. You had a nice little blend of storytelling, visual effects, good acting, and good direction. And I feel that the characters and the way that the movie was portrayed worked really well. I think in terms of actors, we need to start looking a lot more into new talent because a lot of established talent are demanding a lot more fees, and a lot of with Will Smith as anything to actually handle, they kind of try and negotiate big back ends. So Hollywood, my advice to you is look at the way that you want to do things and make it unique as well. Because I know a lot of people have been sitting there trying to do the Marvel way of doing things and kind of fucking it up. So, but we're going to go into that a bit more in 2015 when we look at it, because 2014 we were looking at the building blocks of the DC universe of films.
Yeah. And in terms of 2014, I do want to say one last thing that I had completely forgotten to mention was you started to see a lot of religious films coming out in 2014. I guess because of the fact that there weren't many big budget hits that allowed movies like God's Not Dead, Heaven is for Real, The Identical, which didn't make much money but would have never gotten a theatrical release at any other period. And you have Left Behind, the Nicolas Cage Hollywood remake.
Yeah, that was
Weird
based
that
on
this was
the whole
Kirk Cameron.
idiom. Yeah, the whole idiom of like basically people going, everyone getting left up to Earth, and then people being.
It was the Rapture movie.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't mind Bible movies, but I don't tend to watch them. I remember back in the time, there was a day and age for them back in the 70s and 80s. I think modernizing them now doesn't really work. Like Noah, for me, was a big piece of shit.
That was basically just Darren Aronofsky going insane. That was him just kind of like that had about as much to do with Noah as like I can't even think of that had about as much to do with Noah as the Super Mario Brothers movie had to do with Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's not the best of movies, and I had a friend refer it to me, and I watched it, and I had to switch it off within 5 to 10 minutes because it was just like there was so much. They elongated this movie. The pacing was bad. You didn't even know if no one was a good guy or a bad guy. It was mostly like we're doing God's work. It reminded me a lot of the Passion of the Christ, but it was like a Bible story told to be as dark and bleak as possible.
At least Noah wasn't a snuff film. I'll give it that.
And that's the thing. That's the big thing here. When you look at stuff like this and you look at these movies, you've got to look at what works. And as I said, I don't mind Bible movies. I have no issue with them. But if you're going to tell a story, why don't you tell it? It needs to have something with a moral to it. Or it's got to be something that you can easily translate. And you can't have Bible movies be these epic cinema pieces that are basically going to have tons of visual effects because you've got to rely on the acting to sell the movie. And it didn't really do that for this. Even though it had some, like, you had Emma Watson in this movie as well, who plays his daughter. And you had that whole thing of Noah being an arsehole saying if she gives birth to a girl, I'm going to throw it off the fucking ship. It was like... The movie made no... To me, I looked at it and I was just like, this is just Russell Crowe being an arsehole. I'm watching 3 hours of Russell Crowe being an arsehole.
You can't blame Russell Crowe on that, though. He's good at playing that actor, but, that was like I said, that was all, what's his name, the director? I keep forgetting this guy's name. Darren Aronofsky. He really did go insane with the franchise. And look, it got people talking. I mean, it was basically art house Bible studies. It had more ambition towards something than the Left Behind movie or The Identical or anything like that. So I can't hate on the movie. You can hate the movie, but you really can't hate on it. It was trying to do something different and failed. But
yeah.
Let's go on to 2015 because 2015 seems to be a complete 180 from 2014 because I'm looking at the list of movies here set to come out and there's some big movies coming out, and I think we can all agree this is basically a one-horse race because there's 2 movies coming out right now, and they're all being made by the same company, and that is Burhan.
Marvel.
Who owns Marvel?
Disney.
Exactly, because the two big movies that we're going to be looking forward to in 2015 are Avengers 2 and Star Wars Episode 7. Think about that. These movies are going to easily make billions of dollars. That's not even that's a given at this point. That's not even an if. Age of Ultron will hit the $1 billion mark. Episode 7 will hit the $1 billion mark, and they're all owned by the same company. That's it's disgusting how much money these movies are going to make
But
for
that's the
Disney.
thing. Disney had a big purse, and they made the right financial decisions. And
Yeah, they
one
did.
thing I enjoyed about what Disney's done is they've kind of been very hands off. They haven't had much input in this. They're just like, right, we're going to find the suitable directors for this. We've got the heads of those two studios who have proven that they can work on these and they can generate good capital with these movies. They will do their thing, and once that's done, we'll have a look and see what the figures are. And if the figures keep generating, we'll keep letting them do their thing. And that's what they've been doing. And I have to take my hat off to Disney for doing that, because usually studios don't tend to do that, and studio interference is what makes a bad movie. And Disney have managed to allow these guys to be creatively free.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly looking forward to both of these. I mean, they're going to get my money regardless. I mean, I got to go see Age of Ultron. I got to at least attempt to go see Episode 7. So those pretty much movies are going to be huge. In terms of franchises making their appearances, two of them, and we've talked about the trailers for them, so I won't spend too much time talking about it, that are going to be appearing in 2015 are Terminator Genesis and Jurassic World. They're going to be coming out in 2015. We talked about this when we talked about their trailers. I think Terminator is going to make a lot of money. We still don't know what the full story of it is, so I can't say it's going to be a complete mess, but I don't know. I'm debating whether I want to go see it, because Terminator Salvation really irritated me in terms of the direction they took with that, but this seems to be like a new reboot of sorts, so who knows?
The thing is, the story of Terminator Salvation, I could understand. It's more digestible, because it was the only direction that you could take it. Because after the first 3 movies, that's where John Connor was. But with Genesis, it's kind of like a reboot of the first movie. And I was having a conversation with Alpha Mega Sinless, kind of got a bit wound up about it. I didn't eat it because I mentioned the fact that I felt that this is just basically them copying and pasting the first movie, but they're going in a different direction. They're kind of Star Trekking it. They're building a secondary universe to the one that was canon previously. And I'm fine with that, but, you know, after figuring out the first time they couldn't resolve the issues with Skynet, they're now doing a second time round where they're like, oh, you know what? We're gonna go in this direction now, and we're gonna try and fight off. We're gonna try it this way, and we're gonna bring a Terminator back before all these events happened, you know. And it is an intriguing story. I just don't think this movie is gonna be the Terminator movie that we're all looking for, and that's the sad part. Again, guys, you know, check
so
out.
What you're saying is this is not the droid that we're looking for.
It's not the Terminator movie that we're looking for. And I think the reason behind it is again, as I said, so many film companies, they do a film hoping that they can franchise it out to do more films, instead of looking at this film as, right, what are we trying to tell? What's the story we're trying to tell? Who are the characters that are playing in this movie? Why is this universe even existing in the first place? What has happened previously? If you're going to spin a movie off from the others, then you've got to look at the Terminator movies. You've got to look at the Sarah Connor Chronicles that they made, which was a very successful series until Fox cancelled it. Was it Fox that it was on? I think it was on Fox.
Yeah, it was Fox.
That cancelled it, and why the series kind of hemorrhaged money to the point they had to sell the fucking thing off in the first place. And a lot of it was just due to the fact that they kind of over-exerted it. They wanted to make so much money off of this, and I can tell you right now, they're going to release this movie. They're going to release toys on the movie as well. It's there to be made so they can make toys and try and spin it off into a new series and direction. Schwarzenegger, for him, I think this is going to hopefully give him more work in terms of the Terminator franchise. I just don't see this being the breakout hit of 2015. I think the competition for it as well, I think when they look at it, they've got to look at total gross sales. They've got to look at not just the cinema. They've got to look at DVD sales. They've got to look at to see if this is a worthy successor to the previous films. And I've always been in the whole school of thought of the first movie should have been on its own. It should have stood on its own. The fact they made sequels kind of, with me, it didn't.
Even with 2, I love 2. I think 2 is probably one of the few sequels that I think trumps the first one. But that's just me.
Yeah, it worked because it brought out a whole new relationship between the Terminator and kind of John Connor. Do you know what I mean? The third one is kind of like him bringing John Connor to the point where he needed to be to start the revolution.
True, but I kind of hated 3 because of the fact that it really made the events of 2 essentially pointless if you think about it.
Yeah, it did. And it made everything that was done before it irrelevant because it brought everything into full circle. And I just sat there and I was like, this movie shouldn't have been made. But with Salvation, I felt, okay, they're telling a new story. They're telling it from John Connor's perspective, and you can see what's going on.
I honestly would have liked if it stuck with the original ending that they were planning on doing. Do you know about the original ending they were going to have?
No, what was that?
At the end of the movie, it was going to be revealed that Skynet actually... the ending was going to be where Skynet actually kills John Connor and sends a Terminator in to take his place as kind of a sleeper cell. Essentially, Skynet wins. Which, honestly, considering the fact that they negated all the events from the first 2 movies, I'd have been perfectly fine with that. I'd have been like, all right, this is basically an alternate reality Terminator then. 1 and 2 are where we win, 3 and 4 are where we lose. And I would have been totally fine with that, but it seemed like, they copped out with them killing Skynet, and I was like, it's like, did we do... I don't think we really needed to see the war. It was... You assume that... I don't know. I just didn't like the way Salvation came about.
But the problem is that actually makes my point correct here. There shouldn't be a franchise with this movie because the whole process is they have to get to the point where the Resistance wins. The Resistance never wins.
Yeah, I mean the whole point wasn't the war. It was the lead up to prevent the war. You were never supposed to actually see the war with the machines. It was just supposed to be alluded to. That was the mystique of it all. Salvation showed you the war, and it made it so that we kind of won it. And it was just like, it's a situation where it didn't need to exist. It took away a lot of mystique. But that's neither here nor there. As far as Genesis is concerned, I might give it a shot. I mean, it's got Arnold back. He looks like he's having fun. It's a reboot of sorts, a soft reboot. So who knows? It might be something good. The one that I'm worried about is actually Jurassic World. That one worries me because I don't know, man. Like, I like the fact that Jurassic Park 3 kind of had a B-movie feel to it, but it seems like they're trying to go again with trying to make an A-list franchise out of this series, and I don't think it's going to work. I think... like you said, it's a sequel that doesn't need to exist because what else can you tell except the same story again? Which I fear that's going to be the case with this. You're going to have Chris Pratt in the Sam Neill role of sorts.
Yeah, and that's the problem. You've got none of the original cast returning. Chris Pratt's going to be got whole new characters, and they're trying to make mashed potatoes out of basically cardboard. You've got the material there. This looks like leftovers. Aesthetically it looks nice. The graphics, the effects, everything looks amazing. The 3D rendering. I just don't feel that the story needs to be told. And again, that goes to the whole who, what, where, when, and why premise. Which Spoonie, you got to thank me for. You've never done that. You've got to thank me for that one. Which basically goes, who are your characters? What's happening? Where is this happening? And why is it happening? And it negates the why. It negates the what's happening because it's the same fucking cut and paste premise from the original Jurassic Park series, and who this is happening to. You've got to establish these new characters as why are they there, who are they, what attachments do they have to the previous movies. If that all falls out as null, then you've got a big problem here, especially if you're trying to make something amazing. And I know a lot of people, and I've talked about this a lot with a few friends of mine. They see a lot of the internet as very cynicist and nihilistic about these movies, and the reason being is, being someone who's a filmmaker myself and someone who likes, I would consider myself kind of like a storyteller in a sense. I like to tell good stories. When you negate that and you kind of get rid of the original story aspect of these movies, you remove anything that makes these things tolerable. It's like you know, when you did the Lord of the Rings trilogy and then you did the Hobbit, if you try and do another Lord of the Rings film after the fact, people are going to get pissy because the story's been told. You don't need to tell it again. Same thing with Terminator here. Same thing with the Jurassic Park series. You don't need to tell this story. So I think 2015 Chris Pratt is going to have a very, very bad year to start off with if he's relying on this movie to make him even more of a breakout star.
Yeah. In terms of franchises going back to prominence again, if I'm going to tip my hat off to a franchise that's coming back that I'm actually looking forward to, it's going to be Mad Max 4, Fury Road. I rewatched the trailer recently. That movie looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I have not seen The Road Warrior yet. It's one of those movies that I've kind of put on my list of movies that I do want to see. But this movie looks like it's just going to be a balls out, and it's the same director of all the other Mad Max movies, so it's not like it's going to be some type of betrayal. It's going to keep its own thing. This movie might surprise a lot of people. I hope that this movie at least breaks even. This movie looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Have you seen the trailer for it?
I have, and I looked at it. It looks good, and I'm like the fact that they're actually continuing it from the previous Mad Max movies, and the reason being is Mad Max's story hasn't finished yet. It hasn't been finalized. And this is the thing that I've said, which has been great with the Bond movies and has been great with the Marvel franchise movies, if they continue to do so, is if you put another actor in that role, it's not going to be a bad thing. Mad Max wasn't built around the actor who played him. It was built around the
Mel
character.
Gibson.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It was built around the character. And the same can be said for any sort of movie that you put these characters in. They're not built around the character. I think when Downey ends up basically says no more to Iron Man, if they put someone else in it, I guarantee you the movies are going to still gross. People will get pissy at first, but the movies will still make money as long as there's a credible story to tell. And I think with Mad Max, the story's only just begun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this franchise. I really hope that this movie does well. This might be a sleeper hit. Speaking of movies that are kind of sleepers that have been, well, at least in this case, sleeping for unfortunate reasons, this leads us to a movie that I'm wondering if this is still going to make the money that they're hoping it's going to make, and that's Fast and the Furious 7. I know this movie's been in kind of the can for a while now, ever since the unfortunate incident with Paul Walker. And I know I said when that first struck that this movie was probably going to make a lot of money based on that. It's been a long time, though, since then. I mean, it's been almost a whole year. Do you think this movie is going to make money? And if so, based off of the curiosity? Or do you think it's still going to make money based off of its name?
It'll make money based off the name alone. I think the movie's going to generate the gross that it needs to. I do believe they've probably got 2 more movies left. This one and the next one, and that's it.
Well, Vin Diesel already signed on for it. They've already signed him on for at least 2 more Fast and the Furious movies. I think it was a deal where if he does this, they'll consider funding another Riddick movie. So he's already signed on. So it seems like they are considering Fast 8 and 9.
Yeah, I don't think the franchise is going to be on its own legs for too long. I think eventually people will get tired, but I think this movie is going to make bank, real big bank.
Do you think James Wan is going to be able to continue the legacy as well as Justin Lin did? Because Lin really revitalized the franchise after the first 2 movies. I was ready to write him off after Tokyo Drift, but once Fast and Furious came out and Fast 5, he really started to bring his own style to it that really propelled this franchise up. Now you've got James Wan coming in, who is famous for stuff like The Conjuring and the first Saw movies and Death Sentence, the Kevin Bacon revenge movie. This is his first, I would say, mainstream movie. You think he's got what it takes to continue on?
Yeah, definitely. He's proven, when with Death Sentence, the Kevin Bacon movie. Have you seen that? Have you seen that movie?
No, it seems like too dark for my taste. I mean, it seems like it harkened back to like Death Wish almost.
It's extremely dark, and it reminds me a lot of Death Wish, and it's a really, really good movie, an amazing movie. It kind of has it would be a Mad Max movie. No, it would be a Max Payne movie if you actually allow them to tell the Max Payne story.
I got that vibe too, especially from a lot of the earlier trailers I saw. And I also want to ask, how is John Goodman in there? Because I love John Goodman.
Oh my god, John Goodman is amazing. He turns out, at first he's like the dude trying to help him out, and then he realizes that the dude's actually there's a twist with his character. I'm not going to say anything, guys. You have to wait for the movie file on it. But again, Kevin Bacon's on top form. It's a great movie, and I'm glad they didn't spin off into a sequel. I'm glad they kept it as one movie because it was one story that needs to be told, and that was it. And I know it didn't make bank. I think it was a financial financial failure.
I believe. Let me check Box Office Mojo. Box Office Mojo. It's one of my favorite sites to go to if I need to look for budgets and things like that. Let's see. Death Sentence. Let's see. Budget it made 16 million worldwide on a budget of, doesn't say what the budget is. Let me go to Wikipedia then. Death Sentence 2007. Let's see. On a budget of 20 million. So yeah, it was a bomb, but it wasn't a complete bomb. It made 16 million worldwide on a budget of 20 million.
But it was a critical fave. You know, critics loved this movie because of what it was. It was kind of it reminded me a lot of the whole Max Payne story, and it did a very, very good job. He was kind of a nobody dad who has this whole like event spill off where his son ends up getting killed at a gas station when he's going to fill up, and his son's shot because there was kind of this gang ritual to initiate this guy, and he goes off and he kills the guy by accident, and then it initiates onto the fact where he's feuding with these family of guys who are all gang members together, and they're just freaking hoodlums. It's great. It's a really, really good movie, and for what it was, I enjoyed it so much. It's a personal fave of mine, not just because it's got Kevin Bacon in it, because in terms of the sublime acting, in terms of Goodman, Goodman was on form in here.
He's always good. I rewatched Transformers 4 over the Christmas weekend. My parents got the Blu-ray, and his Hound in that movie, he played the voice of Hound, really stole the movie for me. And John Goodman's one of those guys that, you know, if you only know him from Roseanne, you're only scratching the surface. The guy is a very talented actor. I would say really go out and look for his work. Don't be discouraged by the fact that he played Dan in Roseanne. He's a really great actor.
And the funny thing about it is he's done some amazing work. John Goodman, for me, I think in terms of 2015, you'll probably see him in a lot more stuff. He's currently starring in Alpha House, which is on Amazon Prime. So if you're a Prime subscriber, check that out. But yeah, it was a great movie, and I think in terms of storytelling, that's what we need in terms of our films. But a lot of these big budget blockbusters could blow up in people's faces because they're kind of overthinking things in terms of what they want. They're like, oh, if we do this again, plus there's a little bit of inconsistencies, you know, like the Terminator Genesis, Sarah Connor's now 15.
Yeah, it's like I said, I mean, Genesis can go either way. There's only 2 more movies I can really bring up. The rest are just kind of Hunger Games, obviously part 2 is going to be coming out. Not much I could say about that. We already talked about San Andreas, the Rock disaster movie. That's going to be okay. 50 Shades we already mentioned.
That will bomb. I'm guaranteeing.
That's going to be the Pompeii of 2015.
I guarantee you that this is going to be The Rock's first bomb since he's basically made his return to action movies. And the reason being is I don't think that this movie is going to hold on its own, and it's not going to be a test to him as a leading actor. It's just more the fact that I think people have had enough of disaster movies. Unless they've got it has a prominent story to it, people are just going to get fed up with it.
Yeah. Like I said, it's going to be one of those movies that I think is probably going to end up being a TV darling. You know, it'll be something that, you know, FX or TNT will be playing. Let's see, Disney Cinderella. Although I will say this about the Disney Cinderella adaptation they're doing. It's directed by Kenneth Branagh. I know you're a big fan of his.
Yeah, just because the fact that me and him have talked once before. Is that the Into the Woods, or is that Cinderella?
No, this is Cinderella. It's dated for March 2015. It's directed by Kenneth Branagh. It's got Helena Bonham Carter in it, Cate Blanchett. Let's see. The cast isn't. It's got Stellan Skarsgård on it. It's not a bad cast. It could be like Maleficent. Maleficent was a big hit, but then again, that was Angelina Jolie. This could be all right. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing Disney's put out, but considering they're also putting out episode 7 in Avengers, I don't think this is going to be anywhere near the moneymakers for those. There's not much really I can say about it because I haven't seen a trailer for it. I only saw that it was listed on upcoming hits for 2015.
The thing about it is, I'm not a fan of them trying to humanize their witches, because that's what they're doing at the moment. They're doing a whole Wicked thing with their witches. They're like, hey, you know that musical Wicked? That makes a lot of money. Let's try and do that with the bad guys, the villains, and tell their story.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it, and I wasn't a fan of Maleficent. I watched it. I felt it wasn't as credible as everyone made it out to be. I felt Jodie's performance was good. The movie itself, I felt blew chunks. Even my kids got bored. The thing about it is, I know they're trying to cater it to a certain audience, but that's Disney. And yeah, I do agree that it's probably not going to make the money that you want, that they kind of want.
Yeah, it's not going to make Maleficent money. It's not. This will be on the same level as like Jack the Giant Slayer. That movie lost a ton of money, but I don't know. It might be as successful, but not be as big a bomb, if that makes any sense.
Well, it'll probably be successful, but not as successful as the other two Disney movies that are going to be coming out this year.
Definitely. And in terms of story, I guess the last two movies we could talk about are movies that I think fit into the whole story over substance for thing that you're talking about, and I want to get your thoughts on it. The first one is Chappie, the Neil Blomkamp. Basically, Neil Blomkamp presents Short Circuit. It's about a sentient robot and kind of the relationship they have. It's got Hugh Jackman, Sigourney Weaver. You got Sharlto Copley in there, who's a great character actor. I'm looking forward to it. I wonder though if it's going to be a hit anymore. If it's going to have enough of a presence, or if it's going to be kind of the same way Edge of Tomorrow was.
I think it'll be the same as Edge of Tomorrow, because remember, Edge of Tomorrow actually, that movie came out. It then bombed in the box office. They renamed it for straight to DVD purposes, and the sales didn't quite catch on anyway. But it was a very polarizing story with a very, Tom Cruise was on form in that movie. In terms of Chappie, I think everyone's going to be on form. I just don't think people are going to want to pay money to see it. I think they're going to. People are going to reserve. People are going to reserve their tickets for other things.
Well, it's coming out in March, so it's got that whole late post January kind of dead zone. So maybe it might make a presence. If this were coming out in June, then yeah, there's no chance. But it seems like the studios are smart enough to kind of keep it in an area where it might flourish. So here's hoping. And the final film I want to mention is The Hateful Eight. That was that infamous Quentin Tarantino Western that he pretty much canceled and then brought back and then canceled and brought back again. Tarantino he spins gold out of whatever. I mean, he's one of those guys. Honestly, when I first started the series, I always had plans at one point to do a Tarantino retrospective. In fact, I was hoping to maybe make the anniversary show for that, but I just haven't gotten around to watching as many Tarantino films as I should. I've still got to catch up on a bunch of those. But in terms of Hateful Eight, I mean, he did good with Django. Django was his first Western movie, and he really strived to good with that. I mean, it was Oscar winning. I think I read a list. It's one of the in the top 10 highest grossing R-rated films of all time. So, I'm looking forward to it. Hateful Eight, it's got a great cast. You got guys like Samuel L. Jackson. You got Channing Tatum, but you got Tim Roth in there, Michael Madsen. You got Kurt Russell's in there. This could be a huge hit. We don't know much about it because they haven't really announced much aside from the script. But I mean, are you looking forward to this?
It's one of those movies where I'm a big Tarantino fan, so I'm going to watch this regardless. I do think he's kind of on the verge of burnout. I don't think there's going to be much left in Tarantino's tank. But I am convinced that he's going to make a good movie out of this.
Well, keep in mind, he has taken hiatuses. I mean, he took a hiatus between Kill Bill and Jackie Brown. So, if he takes a 5-year hiatus like he did with that, he might be better off for it. We might get another big hit from him. But he's been pretty consistent. I can't really think of a movie of his that bombed. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Kill Bill 1 or 2, but that's just me. So I can't really say, my thoughts on his abilities in totality. But I think this is going to be a big hit. I really think so. Um, so that's pretty much it. I mean, oh wait, no, Ant-Man. That's what we want to talk about. That
Yeah,
was the last
Ant-Man,
big one.
Marvel's been retooling the Ant-Man universe now to bring Scott Lang into the forefront. And I think they've killed off Hank Pym quite recently. So for me, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to be perceived. I love what they're kind of doing with it. The actor who's playing Scott Lang, what's his name?
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd. He's another darling of mine. He's a guy who basically came from the 70s and 80s in terms of films, and has been really, really good in kind of the comedic genre. So I can see him kind of shine with this. I think it'll be another one where they turn shit to gold. So either way, it's going to make a lot of money. I'm just not confident in the character at this point in time. But again, who am I to talk? I was the guy who wasn't very confident in Guardians of the Galaxy, and it made shied loads of money.
I wasn't confident as with Guardians, and it made a lot of money. But then again, you can tell that this was a passion project for James Gunn. Whereas the director they have here, Peyton Reed, the only thing he's done is stuff like Bring It On and Yes Man, that Jim Carrey comedy that kind of did all right. I don't know. He was brought on with the studios. He's kind of, from what I've heard, he's very much a studio gun. I don't know. This is going to definitely be a Disney movie. This isn't going to be a James Gunn movie or a Joss Whedon movie. This is going to be a Disney movie, and I'm afraid of where Disney is going to take it, because this is I believe the first movie that they've really had their hand in.
Yeah, because they kind of interfered when it was previously being worked on, and the original director Edgar Wright left the project due to conflicting differences, including the fact that he had the original script done. They got two other guys to rewrite the script. Now they've got someone in place who's kind of yeah, you know what, I'll do whatever the hell you say. I'll probably be much in the same boat if they said to me after directing a couple of projects, hey Mike, come on board, we want you to direct this movie. I'd be like, okay, just give me the script, I'll do it. You know, because he wants to prove his mettle, and if the movie makes money, he can write his own ticket, similar to what happened with Joss Whedon, similar to what's happening with James Gunn. But in terms of the character itself, Scott Lang hasn't been Ant-Man in years. You know, he hasn't been the character who's been portraying. He hasn't been in the forefront. So this is going to be one of those where you could get mixed messages from it. I say wait until this movie is released. I'm going to watch it. If I like it, cool. If I don't, then I'm going to bitch about it. Pretty much.
Do you think they went with Scott Lang because of Hank Pym and his unfortunate history, you know, with the whole drugs and the spousal abuse thing that went on with him? Do you think that was the reason why Disney was like, yeah, let's not focus on this guy. Let's go with Scott Lang, because, you know, we can market that instead of, you know, Hank Pym.
I think it's because Hank Pym's story's already been told. They've done so much with Pym. They've done a lot with him. It's like Superman was an asshole once upon a time, but he still gets put in movies.
Yeah, but not to the level of notoriety that Ant-Man was, because, you know, I've talked to people who are Ant-Man fans, and yeah, they say the same thing about. I mean, I've read Ultimatum. You know, I've read how much of a drug addict he was in that, and I've read the stories about the spousal abuse from the previous comics. I mean, yeah, Superman has been a super dick, but that was back in a time where his stuff was. That was back in a time where some of the stuff he did was somewhat acceptable. You know, it was 40s and 50s stuff. You know, we're talking Ant-Man. His stuff is fairly recent, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the Ultimate Marvel Universe you're thinking of, not the previous Marvel Universe. He had his hand in Ultron. I think it's more the fact that Pym had his hand in Ultron. They wanted to give that to Stark instead, so that Pym doesn't debut in this movie. Secondly, I also think is that Lang is more of a relatable character in terms of Pym, because Pym's kind of the Reed Richards of the Marvel Universe. He's one of the smartest people in the Marvel Universe, but he always wanted to make things better, so his relationship was strained. He wanted to do everything he could to make it work. So Pym himself became the character Yellow Jacket after the whole incident with Scott Lang taking and stealing his Ant-Man technology. I'm not too bothered by this. Let's see what happens. I can't comment, because if I comment and say, oh, this is going to be trash, it might turn out to be something that's beyond my expectations. So I'm going to wait and see.
Well, yeah, you are on camera, so, you know, you are under oath in this case.
It's not that. It's just the fact that I don't want to basically make hateful judgments about this movie I'm a fan of Hank Pym. I've always been a fan of Hank Pym, because I find myself similar to his character in the fact that I believe that, you know, one man can make the world a better place. I just feel that the reason they're shoehorning him out because they've got enough guys in the Marvel Universe who have that ability to do what Pym does. Pym's nothing special. You know, he did create the Ant-Man, Pym particles and all that, and the ability to talk to ants, but he's never done anything that stood him out. Of like Tony Stark, Reed Richards, who both have the same mental faculties as he does. Stark himself is kind of a futurist. Reed, again, is a guy who's very, very intelligent and who wants to kind of do everything they can to make the Marvel Universe a better place. Pym doesn't just stand out. Lang is more of a polarizing character who stands out. But I'm not a fan of trying to retcon something new for someone who's already been established.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to 2015. 2015 really looks like it's got its head on its shoulders properly, you know, with the big budget movies that's coming out. I can't see any of these movies really being huge failures with the exception of San Andreas. I think 2015 looking forward is going to be what 2013 should have been and what 2014 isn't. Because 2014, like I said, with the exception of Guardians, if I can really sum up 2014, it was a very ho-hum season. I mean, yeah, we got X-Men Days of Future Past and Godzilla out of it, but you know what? Maybe that's just the cynical side of me, you know, being used to there being multiple hits and whatnot, that I don't know, this year kind of just felt really flat to me. But not in terms of the show. In terms of our show, this was a hit for us. Yes.
Yeah, the thing is, as I said, Godzilla for me, I wouldn't consider it a hit. It was a major box office hit. I felt the movie critically wasn't amazing for me. I think people give it the benefit of the doubt because it reminds them of the old was it Toei?
Toho.
Toho, that was it. Godzilla movies, which is fine. I understand that, but you've got a big budget movie. You had a character that the focus on it was terrible. He couldn't emote. He seemed like fucking Superman. And you had someone that I wanted to see the movie based on him, Ryan Cranston, of course, who just, you know, they killed off within minutes. It bugs me. That movie leaves a sour taste in my mouth of what we as film audiences allow people to get away with when you've got critical hits, films that should be making the money and proving how storytelling works, and then you got shit like Godzilla that's made a shit ton of money even though it was a really bad movie.
Well, they are in development of the sequel, and hopefully once Legendary Pictures gets their act together and forks out the money to Toho for the other monsters, we could start seeing some of them brought into the franchise, which is something I'm really looking forward to.
Well, the thing is, I've always said this: if you're going to have a disaster monster movie that relies on the monster, have the monster in focus. If you have a disaster movie that you're putting it based on a character, then go behind that character. Give the guy a backstory. Let me believe in who that person is because I'm putting myself into that character. When you don't have that, I lost connection with everything in this movie because they couldn't make a decision whether one or the other was going to work. Ryan Cranston should have had his moment in this movie, and he didn't. They kind of built him up with a backstory, killed him off camera, of course, and just killed off any opportunity we had to have a relatable character that we could work with.
Well, you know what? I like I said, I really did like the movie. I thought it was the best in terms of a American monster movie that we're going to get, but that's neither here nor there because we're past that now, and that'll turn that. You know, we can look forward to your opinion. Did you do a movie file already on it?
Godzilla, yeah, I did. You check it out. That was one of my first movie files of 2013 that I did, or 2014, shall I say? That I did.
2014.
And it was just me talking about it and speaking about how I felt that the movie was a big clusterfuck and disaster. I did the X-Men Days of Future Past one, which was kind of a long one, with another individual. We talked about that, and a lot of people came back to me and said that they loved that movie file, even though it was a bit long, talking and discussing about how X-Men Days of Future Past worked. I sold it to Miguel. He went straight to the cinema to watch it.
I've double featured it with Godzilla,
yeah,
and
I did too.
that movie brought my faith back. That was like a religious experience. I love that movie.
My whole thing with Godzilla was I'm glad I didn't pay the extortionate prices of watching that movie in 3D because it was a huge letdown for me. And as I said, the problem is, I've said this before and I'll say it again, as film goers, if you're not happy with something, don't go and watch it. If you know something's going to be a clusterfuck, don't watch it. And Godzilla 2, I'm not going to cinema to watch that. That's going to be a straight to DVD kind of thing for me. A lot of that just it left a very sour taste in my mouth, and I think Legendary Pictures needs to look at it and say, right, we need to nail down a proper story for this. Are we going to continue with the characters that we had previously, or are we going to do it in regards to new characters and having Godzilla intertwined in that story? I do hope 2015 becomes more of a story-orientated year. That's what I'm looking at. That's my pick for 2015, and I think the biggest movie of 2015 in terms of box office is going to have to be Avengers 2.
If you're going to pick Avengers 2, I'm going to go Episode 7. I think it's going to be really even.
It will
Episode
be tight.
7, I think, is... Well, no matter who wins, Disney wins. So, and that's a great way to end for 2015. So, speaking of 2015, Mr. Burhan, where can we find you this 2015?
YouTube.com/nerdgenius. Nerdgenius.com. The site was down for maintenance for some reason. It's back up now. I've got more movie file videos coming. I've got a lot more content coming out as well, including game reviews. A lot of people are happy with the way that I've done the reviews recently, and I've re-engineered and redone them. The production quality is a lot better. The way that I've done them is a lot better. I did a project with Fungo, which was featured on BloodyDisgusting.com, which was the Silent Hill. Basically, it was a weapons focused kind of infomercial that we did. Check that out. Guy C, he put it on his Facebook page. It was done for Guy. Fungo edited it. I was lucky enough to be one of the guys in the video talking about how I love the chainsaw. And I've got a couple of more movies coming out. Perspective's going to be out, debut in the comedy festivals quite soon. I'm going to basically put internet release for a film that debuted in the cinema as part of the 48-hour film project, which was What We Are. I'm going to be doing my own director's cut of that. And I am currently in the process of writing and finishing up writing on a film called Glass Mirrors, starring an ensemble cast, which I'm hoping to get in the Festival du Cannes in March 2015. Apart from that, I'm also looking at moving from the United Kingdom to a new base of operation quite soon, so watch that space on that. And Silent Hill, the TV pilot, we're going to have the Indiegogo up for that as well once I've got the script finished, because I want to finalise the script before I basically get the Indiegogo up. And that's pretty much it, guys. Follow me, like, comment, subscribe, do everything you can to support Michael Burhan. We do have a Patreon as well, patreon.com/nerdgenius, where you can help us with the site and help us with our shows, pay talent, etc., etc. 2015 is going to be a big year for me. I can see it, and I'm hoping, with motivation and courage, it's going to do well.
Well, you got my support no matter what happens. You got me there for the Silent Hill thing, for everything with Retro Unlim. It's going to be a big year. It's going to be a big year. Hopefully we'll be able to see a return on all this investment.
Definitely, and in terms of like people out there, if you want like your songs played on our network, on our shows, give me a bell, Michael Burhan at nerdgenius.com, and I'll be more than happy to basically put your music out there and promote you. Also, just as another way to promote as well, I've been doing this on every single live cast. If you're a fan of professional wrestling and you want to see the professional wrestling change, because there's been some things that have been implemented into the wrestling industry which I'm not a fan of. I think with any company in general that's messing with their employees and trying to stop people from feeding their families, it needs to stop. And I'm boycotting the WWE in terms of I'm not paying for their network.
Well, to be fair though, it who knows if it's ever going to make it to the UK?
Well,
but that's neither here nor there.
And we'll be getting it at $9.99 ourselves. But I'm not going to be paying for their network. I'm not going to be promoting the WWE in any positive fashion, or even buying WWE products. And the reason being, I feel that the company in general has basically they're attempting to screw their employees over by making sure that if they leave the company, they can't work for any other promotion for 1 year. You're taking away people's livelihood, their families, and it's something I feel very strongly about. Secondly, if you want to sponsor an alternative, which I've actually donated money to, go to www.lafights.com. Nigel McGuinness has another promotion. He wants to do it in the same vein as Breaking Bad HBO shows, and he's doing it on a budget. It's 350 grand he's trying to raise at the moment. If you want, please support this project because I believe in Nigel and I believe in this project. It's not a dodgy Kickstarter. It's not one of those where you're not going to get anything out of it. You will get something out of this. And I feel that, if you're a wrestling fan, you're passionate about it, and you don't feel that the industry is going the way that you want to, support something. Support professional wrestling, support independent professional wrestling. And for each and every person out there, if there's a filmmaker or a company that you believe in, support us. Because we're the future. Every single person out there, independent filmmakers, videographers, editors, actors, help support us because we're going to be your future. We're going to be the guys out there doing stuff for the big studios eventually. So, if you want to prove that the industry can be something viable and that storytelling can work, that's going to be the main thing. And, to each and every one of you, if you don't like a movie, don't go to the cinema and watch it. Don't buy it. Don't support it. Show these companies that you don't want crap on your screens. Because if you keep supporting it, they're going to keep making it.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really go out there. You guys are really the lifeblood for a lot of these things. If you want something to really change and be successful, you really got to put your money into it. Especially when it comes to things like Nigel's project and even us. I mean, we would love to be able to step up our game and continue all this stuff, but it's a situation of money. So support the Patreon, support Michael Burhan, and help him, get to that thing. Even, I would love to be able to start a Patreon for this show. Hopefully somewhere down the line, maybe starting something up there that would be nice. I've got the Twitter thing I'm doing, but I can't really monetize that yet. But yeah, before I put in my plugs, I want to go out and plug some of our affiliates, people that have worked with the show before, who really have helped us out through the years. So I want to throw the first plug out there to one of our first guests, which is Clint Davis. Check out XFI on our Blog Talk channel. He's got some old XFI radio shows that really do get hit. That he's kind of done. He hasn't done one in a while. We've kind of lost track of Clint, but support XFI. I'm sure the information there in terms of how to support them is in the old recordings. Definitely go into that. See if you can find them online. Let's see. I'm trying to find the actual XFI page
it's not there
on
anymore.
Here.
Clint's basically disappeared off of Facebook.
Oh, he has?
Yeah, he's disappeared offline, and but he's been a great help to us. Another person we need to thank is also Mr. Dave Wade. If you go to his YouTube channel, youtube.com, Lawnboys Post 1975. If you check out Burhan and the Boy, which is every Wednesday or Thursday on the Retro Runner Network right here on YouTube. It's me and Dave just basically talking shit, reminiscing about our times, talking about each other, and just enjoying our time together. So make sure you support that as well, guys. If you're out there, basically, leave a comment at the bottom here or go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Michael Burhan. And talk to me about, the different parts of the United States because I'm looking to migrate. I'm trying to figure out where I need to go.
Yeah, and I also want to throw one last bit to somebody who has kind of been there from the beginning, and that's Travis Goss. So youtube.com/rose-colored reviews, youtube.com/rose-colored let's plays is his channel. He does reviews of older tech, like older video games, things like that. He has his Let's Plays channel where he does Let's Plays of older games. I believe he may have just done one recently. Let me go check. Let me pull up his Let's Play channel because I believe his stuff.
www.nerdgenius.com, you'll find all his recent stuff there as well.
Yeah, he's done Let's Plays recently for Super Ghosts and Ghouls, Castlevania Dracula X on the SNES. He just recently did one actually on Duck Hunt, which I don't know how you can do a Let's Play on that, but we'll see how that goes. But definitely check Travis Goss out. If you could find Clint Davis's stuff, check that out as well. Definitely check out Dave Wade. Dave, I know you would be here right now if it wasn't for the fact of the schedule. You said in March that, hopefully your stuff will clear up and we can have you back on, even temporarily. But definitely check out Burhan and the Boy. Dave's great. He brought a lot to the show, and it really is unfortunate, but, we're going to live on in your memory, buddy. So for myself and for Michael Burhan, this has been 2014. This has been the Untitled Movie Show. For 2015, take us out, Jay. Come on, Burhan. This is awkward.
I know it's awkward. I can't, for some reason, it's not playing. Give me 2 seconds. This is what happens when you do things live, people. It basically just does its thing. Where are you?
I blame the new Skype for not letting us be able to pump the sound through the mic. But
Celebrity voices are impersonated. No celebrities were harmed in filming of this episode.
Excuse me, sir. The show's over.
Get away, zit face.
Stop making bad movies.